Do do do, theme song. Do do do, I'm broke, so this is my theme song. Do do do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song. Do do, theme song. Left of the box. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy, and over next to me is Audrey. Welcome.
Hello.
And so far, I see in the Sandbox we have Jet. Very loyal. I appreciate it. I think we'll still get people trickling in. I don't normally do live streams these days during the week, whereas I used to always do them during the week, like on Tuesdays and stuff, but things have been changing. Anyway, yeah, I sometimes I get a loss. It's like, so what are we doing? What are we talking about? How are we starting? But Audrey, you reached out to me because you were interested in having some conversations online, and we're both interested in talking about some certain subjects that I think aren't covered nearly enough, especially in leftist spaces. And so I thought,
Yes.
you know what? We can have some good conversations. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more to the Sandbox?
Hello. Audrey Rose Beavers, as you can see, like under my name. Thank you for having me on, Sandy. We've talked a little bit like online before. I've seen clips and bits and pieces of your show here and there. I appreciate the work that you do. And yeah, I am a trans person. And if you want to follow me on any of my socials, you just look up my name, it'll pop up. And then I mostly just do like leftist progressive memes, propaganda and stuff like that. But I also post about the news and post pictures of my cat, cats, plural. And yeah, I'm into a lot of stuff. But today we are here to talk about autism, trans military ban, and the what was the third thing?
Polyamory.
Why am I drawing a blank? Oh yeah, polyamory. Sorry, thank you, Sandy.
Yeah. So before we get into that, you are American, correct?
I am. I am a
So
American.
on my channel, I have a little bit of an initiation for Americans that I forgot to warn you about.
Oh gosh. Okay, I'm ready.
Canadian pop quiz.
Oh no, I'm gonna fail.
Don't worry, you can't do the worst because the worst is getting none of them right.
I will probably get none of them right.
We'll
I
see.
don't know anything
We'll
about
see.
Canada.
We'll see, because you see, I believe in cross-border solidarity, and us Canadians tend to know a fair bit about Americans. And since we're like one of your two neighbors and big on trade, there's the tariff issue, our economies are so entwined, like we have so much involved with each other across the border, it would make sense if people knew a little bit more. So, my standard questions, I'll start off with, what is a toque?
A toque?
Mhm.
Uh
And just so you know, these are questions where I know the reverse of. So I'm not going to ask you anything like,
Oh gosh.
who is the fifth Prime Minister of Canada? Because I wouldn't even know that off the top of my head. So these are all questions where I know the reverse of.
Okay, a toque. Is it some type of food?
No.
No. Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm sorry.
It's a beanie.
A beanie? A toque is a beanie. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
toque.
sorry. I got that
And
wrong.
it's spelled really weird. Toque.
So when y'all see like videos of Tim Pool, y'all don't call him like y'all don't make fun of his beanie, you make fun of his toque.
Well, that was when I kind of figured out that you guys don't call it a toque.
Oh, that's how you figured it out?
Yeah,
Some
because
Sandy lore.
yeah, because everyone kept on referring to his beanie, and I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? And then I finally clued in that they were talking about his toque. His toque. Okay, next question. Capital of Canada.
Oh, I think I know the wrong answer to this.
Mm,
Because I know a lot of people probably say Ontario, and I don't think that's correct.
that is not
Um,
correct, and that's not the most common American one.
and then they might say Montreal. Is that Canada? No. And then, but it's like not, it's not like either of like the major cities. I know it's somewhere like, I'm trying to picture a map. Not on this side. It's like over here somewhere, but I don't know the name. I think it starts with an A.
Mm, nah,
Nope, I'm wrong. I'm
no,
sorry.
no. So, Ontario is the province I live in.
Okay.
So that's like a state. And the capital of Canada is Ottawa.
I thought it started with an A. How do you spell that?
Oh,
Oh, okay.
oh,
I'm really bad at spelling.
yeah, Owttawa.
Okay. When you said it, I was like, yeah, that sounds right.
I think
I just don't remember it.
it might just be OTT. I don't know. I'm a horrible speller.
I
Absolutely
am
horrible
too.
speller. And Montreal is in Quebec and is not the capital of Quebec. Quebec City is the
Yep.
capital of Quebec. Because
Hmm.
somebody in the Sandbox was being like, is it Montreal?
Yeah, that was my
Mhm,
second. Like, people always say this, and
mhm.
they're both wrong. I just don't know what the correct answer is.
Well, I refer to
Um,
Toronto as the American capital of Canada because
yes,
most Americans will say Toronto.
that's the third answer. That's wrong.
And it's the largest city in Canada, so I can understand. And it's the Americans are going to hear about that one more, I think, just given it's Toronto. And there's a lot of filming and everything in there. Let's see. So, Americans have states, we have provinces. Do you
Hmm.
have any idea how many provinces there are?
Oof. 7.
It's close.
I thought it was 7.
No,
How many is there? 9?
closer.
11?
Getting colder.
Oh no, 10?
Yes.
Okay. I knew it was
Yeah.
like not a high number.
Yeah.
It was like a um smaller number.
Yeah. Yeah, there's 10 provinces, 3 territories.
That's yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Uh, and yeah, like most of our provinces still have like the same population as any given state because the population here is so low.
Yeah.
Uh, like the overall population of this country, considering its size, it's very low. And you would have no clue what the roundabout number is of the population in Canada, would you?
No, I don't. As it is, it's in the millions at least, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. That there's that at least.
3 million? Or is it higher? Significantly higher?
3 million's about the population of Toronto.
Okay. So definitely a lot higher. I know a lot of Canada isn't really like I don't want to say it's like inhospitable. It's just like it would be a lot more work
Uh,
to live like in North
no, there's a
Canada.
lot of Canada where building on it just would not make any sense, just given the climate
Yeah.
and the environment and the reach and all that sort of stuff. And there's plenty of communities
Mhm.
already where they're flying communities only. There's no roads
Yep.
that go there year round and stuff. But no, it is quite a bit higher than 3 million. Put in their digit on there.
Oh, 30 million? That would have been my second guess.
Well, it's closer. It's 40 million, roughly.
40 million? Okay.
Okay. And do you know what? Last question will be kind of a fun question that I know you won't be able to get, but it's a fun Canadianism. We don't have dollar bills, like $1 and $2 bills. We have coins. And we also
Yes.
have nicknames for our $1 coin and our $2 coin. Any idea what those would be? And it is
uh
so Canadian, it's ridiculous. Like it's very quirky
I
Canadian.
I couldn't even guess, to be honest. I feel really bad. I didn't know I should have researched Canada before coming on the stream.
No, that's okay. I do this to all the Americans who come on my stream. But unless you know the lore, you won't know the names of our coins.
Yeah, I definitely don't know the lore. I
Mhm.
apologize.
So our $1 coin, which came out, I believe it was in the 90s, it had a loon on it, which is a bird. So we called it the loony
The loony. Okay,
because we're
that is
weird like
very
that.
Canada.
And then
Yeah,
the $2 coin came out, and basically we wanted it to rhyme. So it became the toonie.
it's a Looney Tune.
So we have a loony and a toonie.
I like that. That's cute. Canada's
It is.
cute.
It is. It is kind of cute for our coins. And the $2 coin, it has like a silver outer and then a bronzish color in the middle of it. So it's like a two-tone
Mhm.
coin. And I remember when it first came out, everyone's like, let's try to damage your money by putting it in the freezer and see if you can pop out the middle and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, it's kind of useless after you do it.
Yeah, but they're doing it for science,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
it serves a purpose.
Well, and then it shouldn't be easy to pop out. And it wasn't. So anyway, okay, I'll let the torture end. There's sometimes more questions I ask, but I'll let the torture end.
I didn't get a single right. I broke the record.
No, you haven't. There's been plenty of Americans that come on the show and not gotten a single one right.
I was close on a few, so I
Yeah,
think
you
I
were
get like
close.
partial credit.
Yeah, you were close on some. Or do you know what a poutine is? Let's put that. You know that?
A poutine? That does sound familiar, but I
Oh,
still
okay.
don't.
I thought that one would be an easy one. Never mind.
Poutine. My experience with Canada is probably watching like Lance from the Sirs, and
Mm-hmm.
that's about it.
Yeah. Poutine is French fries with cheese, like cheese curds and gravy.
Okay.
Simple.
Is it good?
There are such things as bad poutines. So, there are some good poutines, there
Mm.
are some bad poutines. And I also like adding like pulled pork or brisket onto the poutine, and it's really yummy. But, if you like fries with gravy, just add cheese to it.
Yeah, I don't think I've had fries with gravy and cheese.
Hmm. Yeah. Because I'm trying to think like what would be a simple Canadian question. And you see, the reason why I started doing this is once upon a time I actually had um this is embarrassing. I'm blanking on Sam Cedar on my show.
Really?
Yeah, he's been on my show. And so I thought, oh, I'll do the cute little Canadian quiz and see if he gets it. And I thought when I asked him what the capital of Canada was, that was going to be a given, that he would have known that. Like I thought that was, I'm tossing you an easy ball here, and no, he didn't get
He
any
didn't
of
get
them.
it? Oh no. I wonder if he knows about do y'all have like a social security equivalent in Canada to like similar? Yeah, he would probably know a lot about that. I mean, he just that's like his bread
Yeah.
and butter.
Yeah, no, we have the CPP, Canadian Pension Plan,
Canadian pension plan. Okay.
which is very, very similar. And, we have a wannabe prime minister, Pierre Polyev, who's up wanting to become the next prime minister during this election season we're having here, who will decide to raise the age of people who can qualify for it. All the same problems as down in the States.
I'm assuming this is a conservative
Oh, yeah,
prime minister or
yeah.
a
Yeah, he
wannabe
wants
prime
to raise it
minister.
to 67. It's 65 right now. In fact, when the conservatives were in last time, they increased it, and then the liberals decreased it when they got back
Mm.
into power. So, like, that's the other reason why I like having Americans on, and I do the cute little Canadian quiz and stuff. But it's also because we have a lot of the same issues on both sides of the border. So a lot of the
Yeah,
things that you're
yeah,
fighting for down there, we're fighting for up here. It's not that different. Whereas I think a lot of Americans tend to think that it's some sort of socialist utopia up here. And it's like, I wish, I wish. And in some areas, we're
yeah.
actually worse. So,
Yeah, I'm aware of some of this stuff, like
Mhm.
as far as like the political side of it, because like I said, I do watch some Canadian streamers that are leftists that will occasionally talk about like, stuff that's going on in there in Canada. And then I watch some of the stuff taking place in the UK as well. Um, so, but I'm more familiar with that. Just I'm
Mhm.
not great with names. um,
Well, I know if I were ever going to an American show and they do the same thing to me, I probably would fail it royally, even though it's like, because I know sometimes it's like you can think of them, but you might not be able to think of them on the spot.
Yes, like the capital. I
Mhm.
have heard that before, and I knew
Mhm.
the answer, I just didn't remember what it was. That's
Like
why I
it,
was like, I
yeah.
can name all the cities I remember and tell you that they're not the
Yeah.
capital.
Yeah. Like I could name like a whole bunch of American states, but then if somebody were to put me on the spot while I was thinking of something else, it'd be like, suddenly it'd be like,
That's okay. I think there's a lot of Americans that don't even know, like, our capital.
no, Washington. There, see, I know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, there's, like, videos of, like, Jimmy Kimmel or, um oh, I think my camera cut out. Okay, there it goes.
Hmm.
There's a lot of, like, um what are they called? Like late time talk show host
Oh,
people or whatever
yeah,
that
nighttime
will
talk
like
show.
yeah, they'll like go on the streets and just ask Americans silly questions
Mm.
and they always like clip together a bunch of people that are just giving the wrong answers for
Yeah.
humor. And I don't know. When I see that happening, it's like, oh, like a lot of people are like, wow, that person's like not that intelligent or whatever. And I'm just looking at it like we need to fix their education system, or at
Mhm.
least at a minimum, like it's like pop quizzing people on the street. Like
Mhm.
maybe someone does know the answer, it's just not that important. But I don't know. I always felt like those. Now what we just did was silly. I think that's important because like it's
Mhm.
cool. I learned some facts about
Yeah.
Canada
Yeah.
today.
Well, it's like
Um,
I've often thought about like doing a little quiz show for Canadians, like where I hit the streets and ask Canadians about Canadian stuff. But I know I would also royally fail it. Like things about like what is the name of your mayor? I don't think a lot of Canadians actually know the name of their mayor. I
I don't think a
do.
lot of Americans would get that either.
Yeah. Like I do, but I'm so horrible with names. I wouldn't be able to name her off the top of my head, but if I heard her name, I'd be like, yeah, that's her. And the same with like, who is your ward counselor? Like all that sort of stuff. Because the reality is, Canada is very politically illiterate.
A ward counselor?
Ward.
Yeah, what's that? A ward counselor?
I think it's the same as in the States. You have ward
Is
counselors in
it?
your cities. It's just you have
I'm
the
like,
mayor, and then you have the different counselors that are broken up into the different sections to represent different sections of the city.
oh, okay, okay.
But I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that's also an American thing.
Yeah, it is. I
Mhm.
just was drawing a blank
Mhm. And
because
again, I don't. Hmm?
I thought we called ours a municipal counselor,
Oh. Well,
but
I
I could be
think
wrong.
you could probably call them a municipal counselor here, and they would know what you mean by it, type thing. But anyway, how about off of the horrible teasing and Canadian quizzing that I do, and we actually get to the substance of why you wanted to join me on here and to talk about some issues that, like I said at the beginning, I don't think get talked about all that much. Polyamory in particular, I find lots of people, especially on leftist shows or any sort of shows, they'll give advice on relationships, but they're usually monogamous relationships. And there's not too much talk about like the dynamics and the intricacies of dealing with polyamory. And then, sometimes it's just nice to talk about autism because I'm autistic. And there's been a lot of talk about that down in the States recently with RFK.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So I have a couple clips ready for that. And also, you mentioned that you could talk a lot about the military ban of trans folks down in the States. We do not have
hmm
that ban up here.
Yeah. Right now, um, I mean, we can just do the conversations in that order.
Sure.
And then I'll talk more about it whenever we get to that section specifically.
Okay.
Um,
So I started with polyamory.
yeah, so for those that don't know, it's in my bio. I am polyamorous. A little bit about myself without giving too much information. I am married to someone and we have two beautiful children. I don't talk about or post about them online very much because I like keeping my online and my real life completely separate. Mostly because I think that there is a, how do I word this? I think it's important for people not to post like a lot of information about their children specifically
Yeah.
because it's like a consent thing. I don't think
Mhm.
children really need to be there's not really a healthy way, especially with the way AI is going nowadays. I
Mhm.
don't feel comfortable sharing pictures of my children online, or talking about them very much. But and my spouse isn't really like an online person, so those are the two main reasons I don't talk about my family online very much. Um, However, I am married. I've been married for almost 13 years, and I feel like I've always been polyam, and the it's kind of hard to unpack a lot of stuff. I grew up in a very conservative religious household in Florida. So I was very much brought up in this like nuclear family, like you have to obey these like Judeo-Christian values. Here's this like blueprint, this map that we're giving you, and you need to follow it to a T, and that's how you achieve happiness. And I tried that. I tried to I tried to, you know, um, fell in love with a girl, got married, had children, had a really good job, but there was always something missing in my life. Um, and when I finally came out as uh, a transgender woman to my spouse, she was cool with it. Thankfully, she's pansexual, so
Oh, I think you just cut out there. Screen is
but
frozen. You just cut
oh,
out for a moment. The screen is still frozen.
oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Okay, great. Where did I leave off?
You were just saying that your spouse was pansexual and, all right, didn't have any issues.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so no issues there. I am in the military and I was stationed in South Korea for a good 14 months, and it was during COVID. So we had to be separate from each other for a very long time. And I had already told her prior that I was polyamorous, and we discussed it together, and we decided, hey, if you're running into people and you don't want to have like that sense of loneliness, I'm perfectly fine with you like seeing other people. And even when we got back together, that feeling was still there because there wasn't really much, like we'd unpacked all of this programming, I would say, that we had about it, and it really didn't change too much.
Mhm.
So there wasn't anything like different about the way that we handled our relationships, and everything's been working out great, and she's been seeing someone um, for about the past 5 years, and yeah, it's really great. It's
Mhm.
really nice to just be able to share someone with someone else. It like it almost, I don't want to say that my spouse is a burden, but it takes like this like sense of, it's like a relief, it's a trust thing. And you don't have to be like that person's
Mhm.
only
Yeah.
source of love, affection, and reliability, because not everyone is always with it 100% of the
Mhm.
time. So that is a benefit of being polyam.
Yeah. Um, for me, hindsight 2020 and stuff, like back in high school, I remember I would start like a new school year and I had a crush on two different boys at the same time. But they were very distinct feelings, like one didn't rule out the other, that sort of thing. And,
Hmm.
as you get older and you start learning that there's other types of way to have relationships and stuff out there, um, you start opening up and exploring. I've been predominantly single most of my life,
Yeah.
although I'm polyamorous just because I know where my heart is. You don't need to be in a relationship to know things like if you're straight, gay, polyamorous, monogamous. You don't need that relationship to validate those feelings. And
Hmm.
I did have a girlfriend, and she had a husband, and he had a girlfriend. And the four of us could like go to dinner, sit at their place, watch a movie, and it was all good. And it is nice because I also don't expect any one person to be able to fill all of my different quirks and needs and stuff that I need in a relationship because I'm also a very dynamic and changing person over time. And to expect one person to conform to all of that or to give up maybe elements of their self because I don't express them or I have to give up elements of myself because it's not something that they're interested in or they want to partake in, then I don't like this idea that, yes, some sacrifices are always going to be necessary in every type of relationship, but why do you have to sacrifice elements of who you are in order to maintain one single monogamous relationship? And so I like the idea that, and to me, it's just, I have the ability to love more than one person at a time. But it's like if I don't get a certain need filled from someone, I can go to someone else. And that relationship, it might not even be romantic. It could just be we like going to the theater together. Because when you start opening up the doors to polyamory, you find that there's a lot of different types of romantic and friendship relationships that you can have that are often denied to people when they think you have to conform to being monogamous.
Yes, because it does come with a lot of rules.
Hmm.
I know a lot of straight monogamous couples where it's like, they're filled with this controlling jealousy, um, that stems from like a little bit of insecurity, I think.
Hmm.
I think it could. And for example, you might have like a husband and wife, and what if the husband has like a girlfriend? Not like a girlfriend, but like a friend who's a
Hmm.
girl that he was been friends since high school. And like you said, they're like cinephiles. They love going to the movies, they love
Hmm.
watching movies together. But because like he got married, the wife is gonna be incredibly jealous and not let him hang out with his friend because she's worried that like he's gonna leave me for her,
Hmm.
and it creates like this boundary on these like straight monogamous relationships. And I think that, and I'm not saying people have to live our lifestyle at all. It's everyone is an adult and they can choose to live how they want to live.
Hmm.
But there are like a bunch of statistics out there that aren't really looking, um, it doesn't make monogamy look great. You have a bunch of people who have affairs, and you have a bunch of people who, the divorce rate is incredibly high in the States. I don't know what it is in Canada, but it's almost like 55%
It'd
here
be
or
about the
some
same here.
substantial number.
Yeah.
Yeah. And um, that all that aside, um, for people who want to learn about it or want to or have ever questioned yourself, something you said earlier, having crush on two boys at the same time. I feel like everyone is capable of loving more than one person at once if they allow
Hmm.
themselves to. And the reason I say this is because if you've ever been in a relationship and it was a good relationship, you thought like, yeah, I'm in love with this person. This person is great. And if that relationship didn't work out, it doesn't change how you felt at that time. Even if you find someone else and you fall in love again, you still had love for that other person at some point or another.
Hmm.
And some people might say, oh, you know, um, that's only because that person wasn't the one. And now I'm with this person and this person is the one. So I love this person
Hmm.
more. And to that I say, what happens if you're the one has an accident and passes away,
Mhm.
is that you're not going to look back on that relationship the same way if you fall in love again. You're not going to tell your current partner, "Hey, I love you," but the other person that passed away was the one, so you'll never be the
Yeah.
one. It forces you to think outside the box for those people that have to experience that tragedy.
Mm.
And I try to convey that to, you know, people that don't. I'm not trying to say that like in a way like, "Oh, you have to be poly because I'm proving you wrong." I'm saying
Mm.
that like the people that are judging people who are poly for living that lifestyle need to have that introspective so they can realize, "Oh, you know what? She's right. If I
Mhm.
am capable of loving another person after my one and only person dies, maybe I don't have a one and only. Maybe I have
Mhm.
a two and only, or a three and
Yeah.
only, or however many people you can fall in love with during your beautiful time on this planet Earth."
Mhm. Well,
Um,
I think a lot of people confuse serial monogamy with monogamy because a lot of humans are serial, like they'll love one person at a time, but they're capable of loving more than one person over their lifetime. Whereas
mhm.
monogamy, like true monogamy, is okay, they were high school sweethearts and they never cheated on anyone and they died together in bed in their 90s or something. Like that's
Yeah,
actual monogamy. Um,
the
but also, I think there's so much pressure on people to stay in the monogamous relationship that they first end up in. You know, this idea that a relationship can't just come to a natural conclusion. Because I would
yeah,
never date someone with this idea of we're going to live forever for the rest of our lives. Because again, people change over their lives.
yep,
I am not the same person I was 4 years ago. And what if I was with someone and that person also changed and I'm not in love with who they became? But there's all this pressure and this like this idea of like, well, you have to work it out, you have to do this. And again, there has to be, yes, some compromise. See if you can work through some issues and stuff. But I don't think it should be such a big deal to be like, do you know what? It's just not going to work anymore. We're two different people. Let's go our own way. Like I think people need to be more okay with letting relationships come to a natural conclusion. And there's so much fear about that because then they're worried about it again, like, oh no, what will happen? Will I ever find someone else again? And it's a lot of insecurity that
yeah,
happens. And I find if you're polyamorous, a lot of that insecurity can go away because you might have
yeah.
another relationship.
I also don't have to worry as much because if something did happen to me, I like she already has someone else to look after her and the
Mhm.
kids. So there's almost like a weight lifted off my shoulder. And I'm not saying that like, oh, I'm going to be careless or something might happen to me,
Mhm.
but it helps with raising children as well. I feel
Mhm.
like that's another topic entirely. Like a lot
Mhm.
of people will judge people like how do you live this lifestyle in front of your kids? Like it's some type of like they like to make
Mhm.
everything um sexual when they talk about
Yeah.
it, which it can be, but not you don't have to just because children are involved doesn't mean that like it's a problem for them.
Mhm.
Um, because we used to raise children in a community.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
the way that these nuclear families try to raise kids is problematic, especially like the way capitalism is today, where
Mhm.
both parents are required to have a job. It makes it very difficult for you to have time for your
Mhm.
children. And when the more people you have involved in their lives, the better it's going to be for them because they have that engagement. And I feel like that's just another positive for,
Mhm.
and it also helps too. You know, we're adults. We need time to be adults. It helps to have extra people to watch the children, so that you can like go on dates or
Mhm.
go to the bar together or go to like, you know, the mall and just take a
Mhm.
break from being a parent and remember why y'all fell in love in the first place, or like pretend like y'all are like younger adults again for a little bit. And you can take turns doing that when you're in a relationship and you have it just like with someone that you can trust and whatnot. So that's just
Yeah.
another benefit, I think. Um,
Yeah, like again, it's sorry, got a cat doing something he's not supposed to. There we go. Um there's not so much pressure on one person to be the only person in somebody else's life for support, for help, and all that sort of things. Like
Hmm.
for me, like a very easy example that I had was one time I was out to dinner with my girlfriend and she ate something that really upset her stomach, but we were supposed to be going to a very good friends at my birthday party afterwards. And so it's like, do I give up going to my friend's birthday party? Or it's like, well, her husband was still at home. So it's like, I drop her off at home. It's like, okay, you get to deal with her. And I'll call every hour to make sure she's okay. And then I don't have to, sacrifice going to a good friend's birthday, but I'm still concerned about her. I'm still worried about her. But then there's this comfort in knowing that somebody else is there who loves her, who's also taking care of her. So it's not like I'm abandoning her, it's
Yeah.
there's somebody else there that is going to be able to help her out in times of need. So because what if it was something different? Like what if I needed to go somewhere for a job interview or I wasn't available or I was having my own health crisis and suddenly now my partner is also having their own health crisis and stuff of that sort. How do you then, if you're both struggling at the same time, it's easier if there's more people connected to you that are able to help out, as opposed to this very isolationist idea of what relationships should be in this world. When it comes to, again, like families, as you were saying, like the idea of, children being raised by a village, like having more adult guardians, more adult role models, helping them, guiding them, making sure that they're protected and safe. How is that a bad thing? And yet so many people are like, oh, you don't interfere with other people's parenting and you can't say this. And it has to be all on these two parents to do everything. And then if a child's special needs, it still falls just on those two parents who might not have the skills needed to look after that child. Then it's also the financial drain and the financial resources. Like it's just so much easier in a community to raise healthy families and to have healthy relationships.
Yeah, I've seen a few silly articles where um, it's talking about like Gen Z and millennials being like polyamorous to afford rent, but there's a little bit of truth to it because I feel
Hmm.
like a lot of younger people that are struggling, they're like renting out like 2 3 bedroom apartments, but you have like 6 people living in them.
Hmm.
And of course, like one thing might lead to another, and they're exploring different avenues of like thinking, and it opens up these um, thought processes that they didn't have before, and they're learning because like the more diversity and the more like different people that you're living around and living with, the more you'll be willing to try new things. And even though those articles are like really silly, I think there's like a little bit of truth to that. Like I think it's accidentally causing the inequality, and
Hmm.
the height in rent is almost like making people rethink what it is. And
Hmm.
it's not just because people are living together in larger groups. It's because like the cookie cutter,
Hmm.
mom, dad, kids, white picket fence, living in like a a big house in a suburb. It's not realistic for a lot of people. Um, and so that
Hmm.
idea that they have to have that is gone, and they're just trying to get by,
Yeah.
and a lot of them end up becoming poly.
Yeah, we're in late stage capitalism and it doesn't actually, support the ideal of what it wanted in the first place of that, again, that monogamous
Mhm.
nuclear family. Like it's impossible to have that and have any sort of quality of life because especially if you have both parents that are working all the time and there's no one there to look after the kids, and where's your time to just be yourself, to explore what you want to be, to grow as a human, when you're constantly just, you know by the time you come home from work you're so exhausted, and by the time you've unwound a little bit it's time to go to bed and then face work the next day and so on and so forth. There's no time to actually just live your life and explore who you are and stuff. And it's a very sad society that we're living in, that it's gotten to this point and people for the most part still seem to be very complicit, but it's getting so far down the late stage capitalism line that we're at a breaking point, and we're seeing
Yeah.
it being broken quite, like we are seeing the American empire crumble right now. And usually what happens in the States, it'll happen up here just a little bit later.
Am I allowed to like plug anyone else's stuff? Because I have a video, and you probably already know about it, but it's like related to polyamory. It's one of the
Mhm.
best videos I've ever seen on the topic. I don't know
No,
if that
no,
was a
shout it out.
yes.
I'm not going to be like, oh, we're going to talk about poly and different relationships and supports, but don't you dare talk about it on their channel while on mine.
So, if you don't already know who the leftist cooks is,
Mm.
their video on polyamory is incredibly good, and um, I would highly recommend, if you're interested in learning more about it, to start with their channel and find their polyamory video and watch that,
Yeah.
because it's very educational.
I actually had a published article about polyamory way back when, because I went to a seminar about a woman who worked in the government, and they were doing surveys and things of that sort about the changing dynamic in relationships. And apparently, triads are very popular for older people in BC, in British Columbia, which was she found very interesting. But uh, I had questions for her afterwards, because how a lot of these surveys and stuff are worded will drastically change the answers. Because as soon as you ask somebody just flatly, like, oh, would you ever think of being with someone else while you're with your partner? Then immediately they think cheating. That's what cheating is. And no, no, I would never cheat on
Yeah,
my spouse. Whereas if you were worded in such a way of like, if your partner was okay with, or just have you been in love with someone else? Or if your partner would be okay with it, could you see yourself in another relationship as well? And like how you word these things so that people aren't afraid that immediately they're going to be labeled as a cheater, should they acknowledge it, is very important. And I wasn't too sure if they had like accounted for that in the survey and stuff. So we ended up talking, and then she's like, hey, why don't you write an article for the Venier Institute of Family? Um, which was nice. It's not up on their website anymore because they got, different people in charge of their accounts and stuff, and they archived and got rid of a whole bunch of older articles that nobody read. Like only a
yeah.
handful of people read. But
Unfortunately,
I I was frustrated, not with them, but the first time I tried to run for the federal NDP, they had me contact the institute to take down that article because they didn't want it out that I was polyamorous.
yeah, that's really sad.
Mhm.
And that is another aspect of it too.
Mhm.
It's illegal to marry more than one person in America. I I'm assuming it's similar in Canada.
I think in
Um,
Canada, the environment is right, I think, for it to be a little bit more progressive and open here. Like that was part of why they were doing that survey in the first place. So maybe down the road, not
I
too distant future, it could be something that's actually considered in Canada.
I think California legalized it a few years ago, but there's been so much stuff
Mhm.
going on. I've lost track of like, you know, all the which I'm more worried about which states I can live in safely than which states I can
Yeah.
marry a second person in, with today's climate anyways. Uh,
Yeah,
um,
I'm still relatively safe here in Ontario, which people might be like, well, you're in Canada, it's all safe. Not really, not really.
yeah, there's definitely some conservative bubbles up there, and it's, it's still a capitalist country.
Yeah,
You still
no.
have like all the powers that be are trying to like stoke culture wars in
Mhm.
the same way they are here, and they don't want anyone um they don't want solidarity among people, so
Mhm.
they cause all this division and strife and
Yeah. Like in Alberta, the premier the governor, as I think you guys would say, the premier of Alberta, passed some very anti-trans laws, especially geared towards children.
Mm.
So it's like, at the age of 12, you're not allowed to change your pronoun without your parents knowing and it being put on record, but you can go hunting with a gun by yourself apparently now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and like right now, I'm not worried on a federal level, but I am worried that if Pierre Polyev gets in, that my passport might get changed. Because right now, my passport has the X marker on it. And so
Yeah,
does my birth certificate. And I was born in Alberta. So it's like, what if they start reissuing birth certificates or something that had the gender marker changed? Like, it's something that I am very concerned about. Should we get in the conservative government?
we thankfully, I know we weren't going to talk about it, but the case down here, Orr versus Trump, um, passed, and even though it doesn't apply to everyone, there's 6 people that sued the administration about the passports, and the judge, basically said, "Hey, this is discrimination. You have to change these 6 people's passports back to
Mm-hmm.
their chosen, preference." I think a few of them were X, a few of them were trans, so it was just the opposite of whatever it was prior, and I think it went through, um, but they're trying to I know the ACLU is trying to push to have it, apply, like,
Mm-hmm.
countrywide. But it will probably end up going through like the district courts and then going up to the Supreme Court after that. So we'll see if anything comes
Yeah,
from
I
that.
am I am very grateful that I'm in Canada. And as I say, we're safer relative to the States, but we're not safe up here for queer folks and trans folks and non-binary folks and all that sort of stuff. But we are safer, and I do appreciate, you know, the fact that we have better protections under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms up here than I think Americans tend to have with the way that your Supreme Court justices like to go to a ruling back before there was electricity to be like, oh, now we have to do this because of this ruling way
Yeah,
back when.
that is very depressing. I hate when they do that.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if anybody in the sandbox has questions about polyamory, be more than happy to answer them. I could throw up the article I wrote because like I said, I kept a copy. But I don't know if I don't know how well it has aged. It's been a while since I've actually looked at it.
Oh gosh, canceled.
Yeah.
You didn't say one word correct.
I know, I know. Well, it has the definition of a polycule, I believe, and a metamor because a lot of people don't know those things. And
Oh yeah, cool.
yeah, because
Yeah, there's like levels to it too. There's like this atrocious graph that a lot of people use where it's like it's including like different levels of polyamory, and it has stuff on there that isn't necessarily polyamory, like swingers and um people like people who swap partners and stuff like that and in like an adult sense. Um but it's not the worst graph because it does like cover like people who are polyromantic or polysexual or what have you. Like there's different levels to it with everything. It's a huge, broad spectrum. Um,
Yeah, it's non-monogamy. Because there's
yeah.
so many different ways. Like polyamory is specifically capable of loving more than one person. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, there's people who have relationships where they're not sexually exclusive, but they're romantically exclusive.
Mhm.
There are some people I knew where one person was polyamorous, but their spouse was not, and their spouse chose to be monogamous to them, but is fine with their partner being polyamorous. Like, there's so many different types of dynamics that you can get into when it comes to polyamory and non-monogamy. Because then there's also polygamy, which, usually the only reason why we hear
Yeah.
about it is because of some sort of religious cult that forced women and
Yeah.
children into it, which is horrible. But
Yeah, it's
like
typically
if some
patriarchal too.
yeah, like if there is like a group of people that decide this is something that they want to do and they're going into their own free will, then so be it. But when you start grooming children at a very young age to be part of these cults, to be married off, and it's usually like the children end up being married off at young ages, and then the boys, once they hit a certain age, will be kicked out of the community because there's not enough girls to go around, and it's a really, it is very cult-like behavior, and we've had issues with them up here in Canada. And unfortunately, when people hear about non-monogamy, that's usually one of the ways that they hear about it, and it's in such a bad light. So then people start thinking, well, that's all non-monogamy when it's not.
Yeah, that I was going to bring that up because that does bring up a good point. Um,
And then
there's
mm,
so polygamy is specifically one man, multiple wives,
yeah,
and that's like you were saying, where it was like usually in religion or whatever. But something a word I learned the other day was
polygamy.
polyandry,
Oh, polyandry. Yeah,
and I didn't know they had a word for that because
yeah,
I haven't really seen that too much, where it's like one woman and multiple
yeah,
husbands.
yeah. Polyandry.
But
I was
certainly
thinking of something
interesting.
else. Yeah, like there's so many different dynamics that are possible. And I had a thought that was brilliant in my head that seemed to have just slipped away. Talking about polygamy, polyandry. I think polygamy is something too. Um,
Uh, Polygamy is the non-gender specific one.
mm,
So um, polygamy is one man, multiple wives, and then polyandry is one woman, multiple husbands, and polygamy. It says not gender specific. That I think that just means you're talking about both polygamy and polyandry as a like group of like when you're
or
having a
it could
discussion about
be
both.
one person with multiple partners of different genders.
Yes, but it doesn't
Mhm.
say that in the definition.
Yeah.
But,
Um,
like, I don't know how old these terms and
mhm,
definitions
yeah.
are, so
Well, there's
and
always
I
going to
don't
be a need for new terms.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
language is
Yeah.
fun. Isn't it
Oh,
cool how
yeah.
we can just label and invent new things, and
Yeah.
then it changes our perspective on it?
And then some people get really upset about that. But we got to name our $1 and $2 coins Looney and Tooney. Nobody seemed to care. Uh,
Yeah, nobody
but
'cause it wasn't
yeah.
yeah.
But the thing that I just remembered is that another issue I've seen a lot of when it comes to polyamory is the 1D rule that men like to try to impose because of the whole
Yeah.
patriarchy and the jealousy and how they can't handle it. And so I'm pretty sure people in the sandbox, you know what D I'm talking about. And so a lot of guys are like, "Oh no, no, babe, you can have as many partners as you want, but they all have to be women."
Yeah.
Because as soon as there's another man or somebody with a penis involved, suddenly it's like they feel so threatened by that somehow she'll like that person more or enjoy it more and stuff. Like there's so much with jealousy and these things. But I find monogamous people, like the ones who are like trying to force themselves into monogamy or something like that, they're the worst when it comes to jealousy. Like just like I can't stand the thought of my partner with somebody else. And it's like, oh, so you got together when you were virgins,
Yeah, exactly.
or he was in a
Even
re- you know,
even even when they've had it's like this patriarchal, it's like it's misogyny. It's
mhm.
this thing where men they like to put the value and worth um of women specifically on how many partners she's had, and
Mhm.
then they do the opposite for them because like if they've had a lot of partners then they're like more valuable. um
They're a
and but
stud.
if a woman has had more partners, she's lost her value.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to try to equate someone's value or someone's worth on something as irrelevant as like sexual partners.
Mhm.
It's in my opinion. I think it's very creepy and weird.
No, it's just
Like,
it is male insecurity just out of control when it
yeah,
comes to that sort of thing. But it's not just the men. Like I've also known a lot of women who have been like, I don't want to think of my guy with somebody else and blah blah blah. And then sometimes it's been the situation where it's like, didn't you meet him at a party where he was screwing someone up in the bedroom and then you two got together
Yeah.
like the next day? Like, so what is the difference? Like, what is the time difference before you're not worried about what he was thinking when it came to this other person? Like, is there a time frame? And like, what is the distance between partners before you'll stop worrying about, or thinking about him with other people or something? But
Yeah.
it's been both. Like, I've seen jealousy from both sides. I've had women intently jealous towards me for just existing around their husbands, even though there's like no interest in any sort of relationship.
Yeah, I've had that happen too. It's
Mhm.
very strange.
No, like this, like capitalism tries to force people to stay monogamous, and then that also um, creates a lot of like jealousy, very hostile jealousy. It's a very um, oh, there's a word for it where artificial jealousy or a needed jealousy to try to maintain control, or this idea of, if I can have this control over my partner, then I have some control in my life. Like I've also had men not interested in me because I didn't get jealous when they were talking to another woman because they
Really?
they equate that with love. Like that our society basically says that in order to love someone, you have to also be jealous. So
Yeah.
I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
really
That's right.
love him if I'm not jealous of him talking to other people. And that has been in something that has come up before in conversation with men.
Yeah, that's a strange way of thinking too.
Mhm.
Like, especially like, how are you supposed to gauge that?
Mhm.
Like, if y'all start dating, um, is it just like, okay, we're dating now, so they turn on like a jealous meter? Because it shouldn't have been there on the first date, you know? Like, I don't understand
Mhm.
like how when or how that happens because I don't really have that like
No, I don't either.
in my body. Like
Because
I'm never like super jealous. If someone doesn't want to be with me, then they don't want to be with me. I'm not going to force it or try to make them change or anything like that. Um
for
but
me,
like
yeah, like for me, it goes back to again high school, hindsight 2020, where I learned I don't really get jealous, but I do feel compersion, which is, the joy at seeing the people you love happy, even if it's with other people type thing.
mhm.
And not everyone who's polyamorous is capable of compersion, but a lot of people who are polyamorous do feel compersion. And so I find it really helps also with like new relationship energy. So when I've started to fall for a new person, the person that I'm already interested in stuff, like my emotions will just bloom towards them as well as I'm reminded of all the wonderful things that they do. So it's like it reinvigorates my pre-existing um crushes or relationships. Uh it actually adds to them when I start falling for someone else. And so that is compersion. That is basically, it's considered the opposite of jealousy. And it's the joy of seeing your partner happy, even if it's somebody else making them happy.
I, I like that word. I don't think I've ever heard it before.
No? Oh. Okay, so I'm going to check the sandbox quickly, see if anybody had questions about polyamory before we move on to our next topic. We don't really have a docket. Oh, and if anybody wants to see that article I published, I'm expecting at least a super chat. Before I potentially embarrass myself, because I scrambled to find it on an old computer before I started this live stream. I haven't even looked at it. I just copied and pasted it over, so I do not remember what's in this article. But I need to
Yeah,
see
I'm kind of nervous.
I need to see a sizable super chat if I'm going to expose myself like that. Uh, But welcome everyone to the Sandbox. We have Miss Man, Grand Theft Autobot, Arvin Trevino. I'm not sure I've seen you in the Sandbox before, so welcome. Angela W. Monope is also there. Afro Phoenix, welcome, welcome. And also for people who might have been out of touch with my channel for a while, you can now become a member. You can join. You can become feldspar, granite, or quartz, which are all parts of sand. And I'm going to be making a video specifically about the perks of becoming a member, as in there's not, but there's a very good justified reason for it. And basically by becoming a member, you're subsidizing member streams for people who live with poverty. Because I don't want anyone in my community to feel excluded because they can't afford to become a member. But if I start getting a lot of members, that lowers my stress, which means I'm more capable of doing more streams. So then I could do a stream that I'm able to do because of the members, but then it would be open to everyone because as somebody who lives with poverty, I've been in way too many situations where I feel like I'm not part of a community, not fully, or I'm excluded from online communities with some of the leftists that I know and like, that I'm not allowed to partake in their conversations fully because I just don't have the money. And I don't want anyone in my community to feel like they're going to be left out because they don't have the money to become a member. And so I will be making a little video about that at some point. Oh, Looney Tunes 9000 has also showed up in the Sandbox. Looks like they're the only mod in there right now. Let's see. So Afro Phoenix has some other words of types of, I guess, polyamorous or non-monogamy. And Arvin saying, is it okay if our partners can live together? I like living alone, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's just personal preference, I guess. I've lived with my wife's partner before. We used to all live together, and we're probably planning on living together again. It's just right now it's not in the cards.
Yeah. No, I'm more than happy to be dating someone who then goes and lives with someone else who they might be in a relationship or something. I very much enjoy having my own space.
Yeah, I really enjoy my own space too. I don't really get that back home. Unfortunately, I have like a tiny little closet that all my stuff's in, and I sometimes go in there and just shut the door, ironically enough. But I do travel a lot, and I'm stuck in hotels like this for months at a time for my work, and I appreciate the break, even though I miss my family very much.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Soul Life just popped into the Sandbox too. Welcome. So I'm not seeing any super chats, so you guys aren't going to see that article yet, unless I see a sizable super chat pop up, and then we'll might get back to it. But speaking of traveling and why you're traveling and stuff, before we started our stream, you mentioned that you had also called into the Majority Report to talk about the military ban on trans folks. And that was something that you'd be able to talk towards during this stream.
Yeah, I called back when it first happened back in January. I think it was January 19th, the exact day. I called on January 2nd. It was the day after New Year's, into the Majority Report, and I talked to Sam and Emma, and it was fun. We chatted for like 10 or 15 minutes. They made a joke about me getting kicked out, so I won't be able to invade Mexico and Canada, unfortunately. I laughed. I was like, yeah, that's tragic.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that if bombs are dropping, it won't be from you.
Yeah, thanks to the tariffs. However, after the ban happened, which was January 19th, they essentially published this memorandum went out, and it gave us like an ultimatum. It was, hey, you can voluntarily get out, or you can wait and you'll be involuntarily separated. And during that time, during that involuntary separation, you'll have to adhere to the standards of your birth sex, was the terminology they're using. So that would mean if I were to fight it and stay in and not take the voluntary separation, I would be forced to wear the men's uniform. I would be forced to cut my hair. I would be forced to utilize the men's facilities, like go into the men's locker rooms, go into the men's bathrooms, et cetera, et cetera. And I was scared, as were the 15,000 other active duty trans military members, because there's a lot of us. And I don't really talk a lot about my job because I am a leftist and I do recognize the military industrial complex. And I know it's a very tough thing for me to be talking about as a trans leftist. But I feel like it's also important for me to be open and transparent about it, even if I feel like some people may judge me for having sold my soul to the state. But
Well,
I was left with no other options.
I know, to me, it is, why would people get mad at you, but then everyone else works for like some sort of corporation as well?
Yeah,
Like
that's a really good point.
there's all these other different types of complexes out there. And as I say, like as somebody who lives with poverty, we're often forced to participate in the system that is keeping us in that position in the first place. But like lots of people will work for companies that if you knew the name of the company, you'd look at them cross-eyed, like, I'm streaming on YouTube. Who's YouTube owned by?
Yeah, exactly. And
It,
I think it stems from people not understanding. Like a lot of leftists think that when you join the military, you're like indoctrinated into this war machine and you think only one specific way, which isn't the case. I worked for the first term airman course at my last base, which is like essentially this thing that all the airmen coming out of their technical training school have to go to for a week, where they sit down and we talk about like it's probably restructured completely now, but we talk about like diversity and inclusion. We talk about also a number of other things. And one of the discussions is like, why did you join? And it's really disheartening because like 90% of the kids coming through there, and I say kids, but like 18 to 21-year-olds, they said that they couldn't afford school, or they couldn't afford to travel, or they couldn't literally afford to live. They were going to be homeless. So they joined the military, which is why I was forced to join. I had a spouse and I had a child, and we were both homeless because I lost my job. And I was struggling to find work as a queer person in Florida. So I saw no other option, and it was right around the year that Obama made it legal for people like myself to join, and I made I swallowed my pride and I chose to do what I felt was right for my wife and child. And there's definitely days where I regret it, but going back to what I was going to say, a lot of people don't realize that like the majority of the military is just maintaining bases, and understand like the grand complexity of that is like, yeah, but those bases are being used for the military industrial complex. But like, what am I doing as a military member? I'm a plumber. I spend most of my days plunging toilets or like, I don't know, purifying water. And that's the trade I learned. Right now, I'm cross training into cybersecurity. So I'll be doing more of like a computer job. However, like the majority of the military is just blue collar work or some type of like field work. You're not everyone is going to war and carrying a rifle and doing like horrible, horrendous things like that. It's a very small percentage. I would say maybe like less than 5% or 1%. So I hate whenever people compare being in the military to like being a cop, for example. But yes, they released a memorandum saying that they were going to kick us out, and we had multiple different lawsuits happen. One of which was Talbot versus USA, and we had Judge Reyes, who was the preceding judge, and they held 3 court hearings in which one of the DOJ lawyers was actually, I'm pretty sure he was a previous lawyer for the Lincoln Foundation, which is like this far right conservative thing. And she was she's Hispanic and LGBTQ, and she was absolutely just, for lack of a better term, she was just walking all over this lawyer. She brought facts, she brought science. The study they tried to use was trying to say that we're not very deployable, but when compared to cis people, we ended up being more deployable, and it ended up just completely debunking their entire argument, um, which I found funny at the time.
Mhm.
So she did a injunction, which is currently going through the DC Court of Appeals. Uh, that's about a 50-50 on whether or not they keep the injunction. And if they decide to keep it, it's going to go to the Supreme Court. And we all know that the Supreme Court's stacked right now. So
Mhm.
I look at it as like my time is numbered, but at least now I have more time to prep, because really they only gave us a month to get kicked out. And this is my livelihood.
Yeah.
They pay for my housing, they pay for my health insurance, they pay for my schooling. They are the reason my kids and my wife have health insurance. They are the reason that my kids are going to school at a elementary school that's run by the military. There's a lot that I have invested and tied into this career, and like getting kicked out would be detrimental,
Mhm.
especially
Oh, yeah.
since um, being a trans person in Trump's America is very scary,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
Yeah, I know, like, here in Canada, it's a bit different, but I did have a trans friend who was in the military, and she says, like, again, the comparison between the military and the cops is a little bit not accurate because people who join the military, for the most part, when they first start off anyway, it's because there is some sort of, there's more loyalty to the country, whereas the cops are usually just in it for the gang aspect of it. And so there is this
Yeah,
desire to serve the country for people who join the military. And up here, we're also fortunate that we don't have to worry so much about healthcare costs and needs because it doesn't matter which job you're in, you're still covered. Medications, though, that would be job dependent because we don't have universal pharmacare here. But there's also a lot of misconceptions out there that make it seem like trans folks aren't as deployable. Like, I think it was what Tim Pool saying or something like, oh, they need to take a fridge with them for their medications, their hormones. And I'm like, no. And
so
then are you saying that anyone who's on any sort of medication can't be deployed?
yeah, here's the thing about that. The military gives out both estrogen and testosterone, and the majority of estrogen goes to cis women, and the majority of testosterone goes to cis men, because you have women in the military that go through menopause, or they have surgeries, or something happens where they have to take estrogen, and you have men who have similar situations. They may have gotten an injury, or they like had testicular cancer, or something happened where they have to take testosterone, and they are required to take hormone treatments in the same way that we are, and they take it at higher level. There's
Mm-hmm.
more of them taking it than the 15,000 of us, and it doesn't affect their deployability, because you can take it in a pill form and not have to have a refrigerator. That's
I
the
don't know where the
he's
refrigerator's coming from because they're just pills. They're pills. They're not, you don't have to
well,
have like a personal fridge in a tank.
I think he's talking about injectables specifically, uh, because I think if you order your and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I've never taken injectables, but I think you do have to refrigerate those. But it's irrelevant because
Yeah.
you can just change your prescription to pills if you want to deploy, or if you're going to end up deploying, which people have done before. Um, but I hate when they use that argument. They act like I don't understand the conservative mind, because in one hand they say like we're dominating sports, but on the other hand we're incapable of doing everything physical that cis people can do, as far as like either manual labor, or in the case of the military, like we're talking about, just deploying to another country. These people don't the people that are the loudest about this, they have no idea what the military actually does. um On a deployment, you're typically just doing your own job with that you're normally doing back in the States. At most, you might help like build a little building or something, but it's nothing like extraneous. It's nothing crazy. Like a lot of us aren't going, like when you go on a deployment, you're still just maintaining a base on a deployment. You're not, the majority of people aren't like going out and like convoying with like a bunch of people or whatever. That's specifically reserved for like special forces people, which goes back to that like 1% of the military is actually in special forces, because they have to understand there's if you count all the civilians that work with us, including us, there's like 3.8 million people that are employed by the United States military across all of the DoD. That's a lot of people to like exclude from leftist spaces if you're talking about like them having conversations with people or them retiring and then joining a community outside, like your local, I guess, DSA chapter for. So I can't think of an excuse right now, but yeah, it's ridiculous. I hate when they use that argument. It's just transphobic to say.
Yeah, and a lot of people, again, don't take into consideration things like how hard it is for trans folks to get jobs. Because even up here in Canada, we do have better protections with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but if a trans person gets rejected from a job, how can you prove it was because of that? Like, that's the thing. You still would somehow then have to prove that this person was rejected by that, but then the employer could just say it was a litany of other things. We just found a more qualified candidate. So the discrimination still happens here. So disproportionately, trans folks are unemployed up here as well. And in the States, it's worse because you can literally be open about not hiring people because they're queer or trans, and you can just say nope, not accepting applications from people we're bigoted towards.
And it makes it harder now because a lot of states are reversing your documents, whereas like for some trans people, they were able to change their documents and when they're applying for applications and stuff. Like if I were to turn in my paperwork, like my name, license, whatever, a lot of them ask for like a copy of it or whatever. Like all my stuff is going to say male, and then I show up and it's like I'm immediately, I'm a trans woman, and then they're going to be like, nope. Whereas if my documents were allowed to say female, I could ghost and still get that job, and that would be a privilege that I had. And I wish that we didn't live in a society where like that privilege would allow me a job over someone who would essentially, I guess, be recognized as a trans person outwardly. I think that we as a people should just be able to let anyone attempt to have a job or not, regardless of what they look like or regardless of what affiliation they have, unless it's something nefarious. Like, honestly, I think it would be okay to like deny employment to like a neo-Nazi or something because of their beliefs.
Well, that's a choice, people are choosing that. I just want to quickly say thank you for the gifted membership. Soul Life gifted 1 membership, and Hermetorologist got it. So welcome to the Sandbox too, Hermetorologist. And this is just kind of funny because Atticus Among Us gifted a membership, and that because YouTube does it randomly, they give the memberships. Atticus Among Us got the membership they gifted.
That's really funny.
So thank you so much.
That's like someone taking like a white elephant to like, wait, do y'all have that in Canada? Do you have like a white elephant? Do you know what that is?
Technically speaking, I know what a white elephant is, even though I don't think they exist.
It's like, it's like a Christmas tradition in office spaces or in like places of work where like you bring a gift, like you tell everyone, hey, the gift range is going to be between like $20 or $40 or something. And then everyone brings a gift and then it's random. So you pick, like everyone draws like a number and then you get the number associated with that gift.
So
Um,
it's kind of like a Secret Santa.
Kinda, but the white elephant, it's a little bit different because there's, it sounds racist. There's, like, different rules involved. Because Secret Santa is, like, you're
You know,
assigned a
yeah.
person, but a white elephant is completely random, and you might accidentally end up with your own gift.
And then can people steal gifts from other people and stuff? Like, isn't this something that's done at like stag and doe parties?
Yeah, I've never heard of it done at those kinds of parties, but I'm assuming so. Um, yes, yeah, you can steal usually it's like 3 different gifts you can steal,
Hmm.
where it's like but once it's stolen 3 times, it's
It,
locked. I don't know, there's different
I
rules
I
that people
think,
do,
yeah,
but
I've participated in things. I have some friends who like to do Christmas gatherings, so we would all bring a gift under, a certain amount, and then, well, it had to be made, stolen, or found. You can invest like money into it and stuff. And then yeah, we would get
stolen?
numbers. It's like, oh, here's this portrait, and the owners are like, you just took that off our wall. It's nothing like that. Like
Stolen.
that's just it's tongue in cheek. Um,
Okay.
so
I'm really autistic. I would, like, legit, like, actually probably steal something, and then they'd be like, "How did you get this? This is, like" How did you Yeah, that's the gavel from,
mhm.
like, the local, like, state chambers.
I
Don't
think
ask
that
how I
would make
got
it a
it.
far more valuable gift if it was really stolen. But it's more just done tongue in cheek, and then we'd get numbers, and then you could, depending on your number, you get to pick whatever gift, and you try to go based on size, but size sometimes is not a good metric when going for those things. And yeah, so I haven't heard it referred to as a white elephant before, but those types of things happen here. I think we just call them gift exchanges. So I've gotten some interesting things that way, and I've given out interesting things that way. And sometimes it's like that thing you got a few Christmases ago that you never wanted, and so you just toss it into that.
Yeah. We got off track.
Yeah.
What was I saying? Oh, yeah, so there's another court case too, that's going through. It's the, Schilling versus USA. So if if the other one falls through the district courts, that one's gonna have its own injunction, in which case, oh yeah, there's also Ireland versus Hegseth. I think there's 4 in total. So, and most of those judges, I think, sided with the trans military members. And if the district court for DC, if that one falls through, um, the other injunction will just automatically take its place. In which case, you have something called a um, uh, what is it called? A circuit split, which automatically goes to the Supreme Court for that to make a decision. So anytime there's like 2 judges saying opposite things, it just gets bumped up to the Supreme Court for them to have the final say in it. So fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Honestly, a lot of trans military members are obviously progressive and leftist. There are a few liberals that I would say exist. Most of them are a little bit older than myself, but a lot of people younger than me are definitely left leaning, and um, they kind of accepted their fate. They're like, I really don't want to serve a country under this administration, um, but some of us. It's more so like standing on the principle because that first memorandum that went out was basically insulting us. It was saying
Hmm.
that like because we changed our gender, we're untrustworthy and we're liars, essentially, which is very insulting. Um, which is how the judge initially like came to her conclusions. He said it was malice, so it was like it couldn't be upheld. Um, uh, but yeah, luckily, it's looking like Pete Hegseth might get replaced, which might either help or hinder us because I don't
Yeah.
know if like
I've been seeing some stuff about that, and it's hard to predict what's really going on because I've heard that some people are just putting it out in the ether that he's going to be replaced in hopes that it might trigger it to happen. But then there's also the people saying that no, they're actually really unhappy with him. So it's hard to say. Like, I feel it's hard to say if he's going to get replaced or not. And then, so you're just going to get another Pete Hegseth who's sober, maybe.
Yeah. Wait, that's why I said it might be better or worse,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not sure if it's going to be someone more capable might replace him, which could be better or worse for us. So I'm just not sure if it's going to be good or bad, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, fingers crossed. It makes me nervous. I've been dealing with a lot of because like I call myself like an elder trans person because I've been doing this for almost 8.5, 9 years, and we have a lot of people that are younger and they're scared, and um, you know, a lot of them are like dealing with depression, and a lot of them are dealing with uncertainty, and a lot of them are like stationed in unsafe states, like red states, where like if they get kicked out and they have nowhere to go, they're going to be like struggling. So I have been trying my best to spread as much positive and as much like reassurance as I can across the community, and helping out where I can, because a lot of these people don't know how to read legal terms, or they don't know how to like understand the court cases, and thankfully we have like a large group of people like myself that have been in for a while, and I survived Trump's first term in the military, and whatever happens with this one will happen. But we're just kind of sitting and twiddling our thumbs for the time being. Thankfully, the injunction basically said to ignore everything that came out that was trans related up until this point. So yeah, thanks for letting me talk about it on your show. I appreciate it. No one's really platformed me to talk about it, unfortunately, because like I said, a lot of leftists are kind of like, they don't want to give the impression that like by talking about the trans military ban that they're defending American hegemony.
Imperialism. Yeah.
Yeah, imperialism.
Yeah.
But it's just a job.
Yeah.
It's like that for everybody. It's just a means to an end.
I don't see the issue in talking about it. And it is, as you were saying, the military is one of the largest employers of trans folks. So, all of those people suddenly being forced out of it into different jobs in a very hostile environment down in the States. I remember at the time, though, I think there was people up here then wanting to push the Canadian government to be like, so then why don't you just take in all these fully trained American soldiers into the Canadian military?
Yeah, that's another thing. Like a lot of us are like the majority of us we've been in for like 5+ years. We're like senior NCOs or NCOs or officers. My friend and I did the math. It's going to cost them like $3 billion to kick us all out. It's a lot of money.
It's just ridiculous. And again, it should just come down to, is a person capable of doing the job? Then what else? What does gender, appearance, religion, or anything else matter? Can they do the job?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think then we can start moving on to the third thing that we were kind of thinking about talking about. And it's probably best that this one is left to last, because this is where we will probably get more rambly talking about
I can
autism.
ramble on about this.
Yeah,
I feel nervous talking about my job, because it's like,
Mm.
what can I not say, or what can I say in both aspects of like, how do I not
Well,
make
just
my
think of
leftist
this.
friends
Yeah,
mad,
just
and then
think
how
of
can I
this.
not get fired?
Just think of this as a signal chat. So feel free
Yeah,
to say
oh my
anything.
gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, someone just joined your stream. Who is NSA member? Oh, it was a joke. I was saying like the NSA are listening now.
No, here it'd be CSIS.
Oh, CSIS, is that what y'all call him?
Yeah, that's our spy network up here. It sounds cute though, doesn't it? CSIS. That's one of our spy networks. We actually have a few of them. So why don't we get talking about some autism things? And I do have some clips that can get this conversation going. So I'm going to switch over to screens, and everyone be patient because you know what happens when I have to switch over to screens. So just a second, everyone. You get to see a nice little kitty cat while I'm setting this up. And then I go over, I do this and this to the stage there. So now you see us off to the side, but you're not seeing what I wanted to see yet. And then I have to go over here, and then I have to do this, and then this time instead. Okay. Okay, so you see the YouTube video there, and nobody else yet does, so I have to get rid of Frodo. I have something covering the image so that they're not seeing all the sausage being made. There we go.
That's a really beautiful cat.
Oh, thank you. He's the 18-year-old that I have. He's on daily medication, and so any help with his vet bills are greatly appreciated. You can do that by the PayPal link or sending an e-transfer if you're Canadian. Yeah, he's still doing amazingly well, and oh my god, I love that cat to death. And he has a cute name. He's named Frodo. So
Frodo, that is adorable.
So I have here a very interesting clip of RFK. Interesting. People who watch Lefty shows have probably seen this already, but now you're going to hear two autistic people talk about it. Have you seen this clip?
I have. I've seen all of them. Yeah. I'm ready for it though.
Okay.
It's certainly interesting.
Yeah, it was part of this NBC News thing, so I don't think it's all of this. It's not going to be the full 4.5 minutes here. It's just part of it here. I think it starts here.
Predicted those findings. Listen.
One of the things that I think that we need to move away from today is this ideology that the autism diagnosis, that the autism prevalence increases, the relentless increases, are simply artifacts of better diagnoses, better recognition, or changing diagnostic criteria.
You know what's really funny? After a telescope was invented, there were suddenly so many more planets.
Yeah, or like when I don't know if it was in Canada, but one of the studies that a lot of people like to point out as far as like trans people is the left-handedness in America. It used to be illegal to be left-handed, and then when they made it not illegal, everyone just sort of like shot up to like, it went from like 1% to like 10% or something, 5%. And it's like, where did all these left-handed people come from? There's a left-handed epidemic or whatever. But yeah, it's really silly.
It is just, we have better diagnosis, better understanding. There's a lot less misogyny in it, because it used to be little girls don't get autistic. It's only little boys.
Yep. And then there's also sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. There's also there used to be like different levels of things that were called like Asperger's, for example, or autism is slowly becoming like an umbrella term for like multiple things that we've sort of like gotten rid of or we phased out. And that's also why you're seeing a higher number, because we're calling more things that we used to not call autism.
Yeah, and the thing is hindsight, I look back and all the signs would have been there if you knew to look for it when I was a child. But also my grandmother, when she had to be moved into a nursing home and we were cleaning out the house that she was in, there were like stacks and stacks and stacks of collapsed fish sticks boxes, because that is what she ate every day.
Yeah.
Like there's so many signs and there are genetic cues to it. And another dead giveaway should have been the fact that when I was a child, they knew I was dyslexic, because it's usually, you don't normally get one. It's usually a bundle package when it comes to being neurodivergent. So they knew I was dyslexic, even though it was hard to diagnose because it wasn't so prevalent that it was in everything I did. So it
Hmm.
became a lot more challenging, but my mom knew because I did it often enough, especially at home. It's like, change the channel to 21, and I would hit 12 over and over again, like that sort of thing. So she knew. Or if I gave her a phone number of a friend's house that I was at and she tried calling the house and it was the wrong number, she'd reverse the last 2 digits. So she knew. I knew. And it's something that I still actually do struggle with. And the more tired I get, the more dyslexic I get. But also, I've known for quite some time I have OCD. And I remember some of the compulsions roughly when they started when I was a child. Like I have a compulsion to touch certain spots near me sometimes. And I remember one time sitting by an organ that was in my house because my stepfather wanted to learn how to play the organ. And I was sitting by it and I had to touch, like I had to, around some of the keys. It's a compulsion to touch certain areas, to
Yeah.
tap certain areas. That's why I'm
Yeah, you're
constantly,
spinning.
yeah, that's why I'm constantly fidgeting because I need to have that tactile thing, but sometimes there's a compulsion to touch a specific spot, like on the desk next to me or on the chair. And then, I'm really kind of like, will dig my fingers into it because I have to. And then there's the food quirks that I have when I'm eating certain things. Then also I realized a lot younger age, ADHD is something I also have. And so
Yeah,
cluing
I
into
do
the
too.
autism was the last kind of puzzle piece in that one. So that's the thing. Like it's usually I was autistic back then, but I wouldn't have been counted. Just like I was non-binary back then, but I didn't know what non-binary was at the time. So it's not like I was counted in any surveys back then. So now it just seems like, oh, there's this increase. But it's not only is there better diagnosis of young folks, it's also older people cluing in and changing the statistic as well. Because I was an adult when on the Canada surveys that they send out for population and whatnot, I forget what it's called off the top of my head. As an adult, I switched it to non-binary when they were asking for gender. So not only are you having younger people aware of it, you also have older people becoming aware of it at the same time. So it's making the bump seem sometimes, I think, a lot even higher because,
Yeah.
somebody has their child diagnosed with autism and then all these traits that they're saying, oh yeah, these are all autistic. And the parent is like, so I do all of that, but I was never
Yeah.
diagnosed.
And that reminds me of those really funny memes I see where it's like it'll be like a grandmother and she's like, "Oh, I don't know why everyone like I don't think autism's a thing." And it's like, "Grandma, have you seen your fridge? There's like 1,000 strawberry magnets like all over your fridge. Your entire kitchen is just all strawberries, like the
Mhm.
whole kitchen." And I actually have a personal anecdote. I'm pretty sure I get it from my grandfather because I noticed a lot of like stuff that he does is very interesting. Before I came here, I stopped at my mom's place and she lives down the street from him, so we went to go visit. And I was just sitting at a desk, and he just brings over like this like booklet, and it kind of looks like a trading card, like you would put like Pokemon cards in or something like Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And I open it, and it's just knives, like little pocket knives, and there's hundreds of them. And I was like, "Oh, this is cool. Like, I guess you collect knives now?" And he's like, "Yeah, I have a big collection of these little pocket knives. They're cool, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I set it down, and he opens a drawer, and there's like 8 of these books. And I was like, "Wow, okay." And then he's like, "Here, look." And he just kept making me look
Mhm.
through all of them, and I was happy to do so because it was
Mhm.
making him happy. He just sat there and watched me look through all these little knives. And I'm like, "This is really interesting." And he tried giving me one, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I'll take a knife from you." And he felt really like proud of his like little knife collection. It was the sweetest, like cutest thing I've ever
Mhm.
seen him do. And like I grew up with this man.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh
No, I totally get that as I'm staring at my over 300 Slinkies on the shelves across from me.
yeah. It's really funny. Um but yeah,
Yeah, the The signs were always there. And so this idea that it's not just because of diagnosis changing, there must be something else. Well, vaccines have been around for a fairly long time too,
Yeah.
and it is the whole, some people were, the signs of autism were there before the vaccine, but the idea that you can just have a vaccine and suddenly that changes your brain chemistry, because I do believe that you could probably be in accidents and things of that sort and then probably end up on the spectrum, or just the way your brain works over time. But the idea that just one injection of a vaccine and suddenly you're autistic, to me, it just sounds ridiculous. Especially
Yeah, I
when
don't think.
you look at people who have and haven't been vaccinated, and when vaccinations were introduced, there wasn't exactly a spike in autism. And it's been
Yeah.
debunked. It's been, scientifically debunked by researchers and stuff, but they just want to hang on to it because they want to otherize people who don't conform. And that's one of the biggest traits of people who are autistic is we have a hard time working because we have a hard time working in the system that has been designed by capitalists. I am very
Mhm.
capable. I am very talented. I have some amazing art skills, as people have seen, but that's not going to serve a corporation very well. And then the way
No.
the office dynamics are set up, the interactions there, I don't work well with people, and it's been very problematic for me
Yeah,
trying to be
same.
forced to work with others, and it's because we don't conform into the workers they want, and we tend to push back. We don't respect the hierarchy, so our boss is just the person who's in that position. We don't, lord over him like, oh my god, this is the boss, we must respect him more somehow. And so since we don't conform like that, they don't like us. And so they want to find a reason to diagnose us, and, well, he wants to put us on farms.
Yeah, that's scary, especially considering the news that I don't know if you've heard the news today that broke.
Maybe?
He's violating essentially violating HIPAA because he's creating an autism registry where
Oh,
he is collecting data on all of our private health records.
yeah.
Yeah, that just dropped this morning.
Yeah, he is, just the thought of this guy who had dead animals leaking juices onto his kids in a car. Put a
Yeah, that's so
baby
gross.
dead bear in the park in New York's big park there. Like all these things, all these horrible things that he's doing, and then he wants to try to make it seem like people who are autistic are the weird ones. It's just I don't think there's much of a, when it comes to
Well,
weird and normal, I think I'm more
we can just
normal
let
than he is.
yeah, we can just let him uh let's let him say his words and then we can react to like how ridiculous it is, especially this interview or this what was it,
This little snippet.
statement.
RFK Jr. has repeatedly and consistently made false and unproven claims about autism, including claiming that
I thought
vaccines
this was
cause
the
the disorder,
full-
which has been disproven over time. Joining me now is NBC, a little bit more of what he said today.
Okay.
Get your reaction on the other side.
This is a preventable disease. We know it's an environmental exposure. It has to be. Genes do not cause epidemics. They can provide a vulnerability. You need an environmental toxin.
And you did.
I think there's a lot of people who are born who are predisposed to different things. And then with the right environmental factors, things like addiction. So I know, genetically speaking, I'm predisposed to it because my father was also very much an addict, like alcoholism and things of that sort. But I've never been addicted to alcohol or drugs. Caffeine, absolutely.
Yeah, same. I definitely
So
love caffeine.
I think there's a lot of things that people are predisposed to, and if there's the right environmental factors around, then it gets amplified. But the idea, again, of what he's saying, that people aren't just born autistic is.
I think that it's nefarious the way he's trying to say it's an he said it was an epidemic,
Yeah.
or a
Okay.
pandemic. I forget. Like you can't. There's that's not a that's not a thing. They will just say stuff to justify bigotry and like taking away our rights. Like, it's not good.
I don't think this is the full clip. I thought this is the full clip, and I had the full clip on Twitter all queued up, but then I thought, oh no, we're going to watch it in the YouTube video because it'll be longer. Oh, not. I want RFK toilet to look up.
There's a bunch of weird stuff he said.
But there's one clip that goes kind of through a bunch of it. Okay, here, I think this is the clip I want. From Asen. This one. Kids will never pay taxes and stuff. I think this is the full clip. Make that nice and big for people to see. And switch all my other stuff over. So you're seeing the RFK one right now? The Twitter? Okay.
I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah,
though.
There we go.
This is an individual tragedy as
There it
well.
goes.
Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are children.
Again, just the thought of thinking of children as resources, not as human beings, not as, people with their own distinct individuality and autonomy, but as resources. Like, I understand why people say that, but it
that's-
kind of bugs me when they do.
No. That's how their ideology is, though. They look at them as future workers, but in a nefarious way.
Yeah.
They think of children like cattle almost.
Mhm.
Like, and it's very problematic to like view kids that way. Like the reason that, from their perspective, the reason this is an epidemic is because they feel that people with autism aren't good workers, and therefore we must cure this disease from these children so that we have a better workforce. And it goes back to like other stuff that they're trying to do, where it's like they're talking about how, there's a what is it called? We don't have enough people giving birth to children. And so they're saying like, oh, this is a bad thing because not enough people are going to repopulate the earth, which is going to affect our supply chain. You really shouldn't be thinking about a supply chain when you're talking about like a systemic issue as big as people not having kids, when the reason people aren't having kids is because we can't afford to.
I just never wanted to. I also would not have been able to afford them if I did want them anyway.
Who should not
Yeah.
be suffering like this. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure
Pause
into
it.
autism.
He said fully functional and then regressed, as if he has proof that vaccines did that. But like, what basis is he saying that on? The majority of children in the United States are required to get vaccinated before they start public school in most states. It's like a law. And a lot of the vaccines, and some people get their kids vaccinated at birth. So how is he, if he's trying to say that vaccines cause autism, how does he know they're regressing if he hasn't seen their progress? There's no way of testing that. Like that statement he just said is untestable. You can't see regression until there's a basis to study it on. It doesn't make any sense.
It's kind of like I would have been a very normal child until I had to start doing things like spelling and math where my dyslexia would have actually seemed to have come out. But before I had to worry about that sort of thing, I wasn't dyslexic, But then suddenly I regressed? No, it was because I wasn't spelling or doing math or things with numbers back then. Like I wasn't doing activities where it was notable. But then as soon as I got old enough to where those activities became notable, then suddenly it's like, oh, okay, she's dyslexic. But I had always been like that. It's just at a certain age, it's not it's not part of your functionality. It's not part of your day-to-day noticeable.
when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will,
'Cause here he is-
when they're 2 years old.
Like, again, 2 years old, I would have come across as a very normal child because I wasn't spelling or doing math back then.
Yeah,
So-
there's not a lot of indicators. There
Yeah.
are some,
There will be some, but
but you have people who aren't autistic that have those same indicators that grow out of it, like speech delays or not being able to walk correctly or walking on your tiptoes. There's a lot of stuff that like people with autism will do as a child that other people without autism will do that, you know, there's like a divergence that can or may not happen. It's really strange. I don't know. I feel like arguing with RFK Jr. is really hard because he just, in this, what is this, a 52-second clip?
Yeah.
He says like, he probably says like 20 or so misinformation things, and he says it as fact. Like, it's not a fact. It's just misinformation.
And regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job.
I'm doing a job right now.
Yeah, I pay taxes.
Yeah, and I pay taxes. I've been able to maintain some jobs under very specific environmental controls. I've been able to do some jobs, but I'm doing a job right now. My artwork could be considered a job. I do writing. That could be considered a job. I do lots of jobs, but again, it's not the jobs that he wants somebody like me to do. Somebody who isn't part of his class, who can get away with being an artist or a writer, and it's lulled. But if you're part of, if you're living with poverty or you're working class, then you must work the jobs that he wants you to, or else you're incapable of working type thing. We don't have the luxury of being artistic or something because we're not part of the 1%, the wealthy class.
They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never.
I've written 2 books.
I love the baseball thing because, like, I used to play baseball as a kid.
I will admit, I could not. But I was ambidextrous with batting, so that was interesting. I tended to bat more left-handed than right-handed, but I despised team sports as a child because I did not like other kids.
I did
And-
too. My parents forced me to.
Yeah. And I couldn't throw. So quite often I would go into the back corner outfield as the post because the balls usually didn't get out there. And then when the ball did randomly get out to my spot, I'd pick it up and I'd run with it. And they'd get mad at me and say, just throw it. And they didn't understand it was faster for me to run with it than for me to throw it. Because my joke is I can never join the military because I can't throw a grenade out of blast range.
That's funny.
Like I
I've
wouldn't be
never
able to throw it
seen a
that far.
grenade.
Like I cannot throw a ball. Although I was pretty good at basketball. Basketball I was actually really good at. My mom even put me into like a basketball camp at one point because it was something that I really did enjoy playing. And I was good at that. But throwing a baseball, it would just go. It's 6 feet in front of me. I might as well have just ran with it.
Yeah.
Baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never.
Okay, as somebody who is chronically single, I do kind of feel that one.
Here's the thing. We do have substantial evidence that like ADHD and autism are hereditary. There are a lot of studies that show if you are diagnosed, there's a good chance your children could be. And he just said like they'll never get a date. Do they think this just happens? Like it's literally just a different way that our brains like function and think. And if it's hereditary, we're obviously getting some sort of dates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, no.
um,
Well, quite often it's autistic people tend to date other autistic people because you have to find one where, the gears work right to each other, that you're not grinding towards each other, but two
yeah.
autistic people that merge well, that's great. But it's very hard for an autistic person and a neurotypical person, I think, to actually be on the same page or being able to understand each other at all. Because,
What I find interesting that happens for some reason is you'll have like an autistic partner and an ADHD partner, and for whatever reason, and sometimes it's comorbid where like
Mhm.
one of them is both, but it's always like the autistic partner and the ADHD partner, and that's like your neuro spicy
I I
couple.
fall into the both category. So
Yeah, same.
it's astonishing that I am able to do this job actually with the way my
Yeah.
brain works. Um, it is actually quite astonishing. I'm able to produce as much content as I do. But I do find I struggle in any sort of like dating. But that also goes back to like the polyamory and this idea of conforming to a certain type of relationship. So when I go out on a date, this idea that it has to follow these steps in order for it to be normal or real or for the other person to be accepting of it. Like this is the pattern and I don't necessarily follow the pattern. And um yeah, I'm not necessarily an easy person to get along with in person. All you guys like me in the sandbox because you just see me when I'm on camera.
Yeah.
Uh but I have been on dates. I have had a few relationships. I would like to have more.
On a date, many of them will never use a toilet unassisted.
Even severely autistic people can still use a toilet.
I made a joke. I'm in a group chat with my friends.
I love how we're
And I
both in
was
this position at the same time.
I was talking about the news that dropped today with him collecting our data.
Mhm.
They're essentially making a monitoring system where they can track people who have autism. And I made the joke. I was like, hey, when they send us to the camps and they give us the coloring books and like the poetry, like learn poetry books or whatever, are they going to give us like potty training kits too so that we can learn how to use the bathroom correctly?
Yeah. Well, there has to
It's
be a kit that is tactile because some people learn with objects, but then there has to be one that is diagrammed out so that
yeah.
you pull down your pants before you release your bladder type thing. Because if you mix up that order, like I'm dyslexic, but I'm not that dyslexic. It's yeah. I live alone. I
Yeah.
function alone better than when I'm with other people. So that means I'm always going to the washroom by myself. True, I'm
When
a
he
horrible cook, but I am able to burn food to eat. Like, it's just, I'm able to live independently. But I can't, again, I can't do the type of work he wants somebody of my class to do.
my friend made the joke too. When he first said this, I posted it to the group chat, and I was like, because in the group chat there's like 6 of us and 2 of us have autism or are artistic. Oh my gosh, I can't even talk. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And she was like, I was like, hey, I didn't know that we couldn't use the restroom. And then she was like, actually, I have a secret. And her spouse is in the group chat too. And she's like, my spouse has been helping me for the past 20 years. And y'all just didn't know. Oh my gosh. It's so silly that he would even say that. It doesn't
Yeah.
even there's
Like,
there's
what has he been exposed to, like even in the right-wing media, to make him think something like that? to say something
Yeah,
like that out loud. Like, I don't even get where this is coming from. Like, where has this ever been an issue? Why are they so obsessed with washrooms? Because first it's like, oh, trans folks aren't allowed to use the washroom of their choosing. And now it's like, well, autistic people can't even use them. So, like, just
yeah, their brain is just in the toilet. That's where it stays.
so full of shit that that's all they can think of. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize
Maybe it's just projection. Anyway, back.
many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children. Sir,
No, we are not doing this to our children. I can use a toilet.
There's like a word for what they do. I forgot what it was. They make every single culture war issue about children's safety and children's like the future of
Mhm.
children. Because they know it like placates to their base, because their base will be like,
Mhm.
we have to think of the children and the children this and the children that. But I don't understand that logic of thinking, because they don't care about children
No,
at
like for
all.
me, the most unsafe place for children would be around people like him.
Yeah, like they don't, you'll be like, hey, maybe we should have free lunch. And then you'll have like conservatives like, nah, the parents are responsible for feeding their kids. And it's like, I think that we as a society should communitively make sure that kids aren't starving.
Mhm.
But that's just me. And then it's like, I don't know. They literally are using children to push their
Mhm.
agenda. And it's really annoying and frustrating when they try to do that.
Yeah, it's annoying, frustrating, and all these people who are like, we're trying to make children safe and stuff. I feel like they're the most unsafe people for children to be around.
Yeah.
Well, here's a
It
gun
goes,
and a beer and say whatever slur you like, and yeah.
yeah. It's also like, I don't know how familiar you are with like Autism Speaks and um their old videos and stuff that were really problematic. But like the whole like we want to cure autism thing, it's like it's like they view these children like they're burdens. Like they're, I have to take care of this thing and it's ruining my life. And it's like, if you weren't ready to have, and I'll say this, if you're wanting to have children and you are not prepared for your child to be any type of neurodivergent, any type of LGBTQ plus, anything, any type of disorder, if you're not ready to devote your entire like being into taking care of this child, regardless of how they come out, then you're not ready to have kids, and you probably shouldn't.
No, I suffered from some massive depression because of that, and my mom outright saying, like, my relationship with my mom has ebbed and flowed. It's good right now. We've overcome a lot, but in my early 20s in particular, she actually said to me that I was a burden. So,
Yeah,
like this talk of people being burdens and stuff, especially people with mental health issues, we already feel like a burden to the people around us and
yeah,
stuff. To have somebody up at that level saying that we're now a burden on society in general doesn't help.
no,
But I also have a couple other clips related to Autism Speaks, not Autism Speak, but, talking about autism, that I thought might be interesting to go over. Two of them kind of are related. So first I'll show this one. So this is Pierre Polyev at the debate. And here we have this person saying, oh man, this is so telling. Pierre is an absolute arrogant twat. Carney is a normal human being. And why is that? He's not giving eye contact. And the little caption here says, it's the eye contact for me. And so then the person will go up to Mark Carney. Mark Carney looks at him. Jagmeet Singh looks at him too. And the comments the amount of judgments, like, I despise Pierre Polyev, no doubt about it. But the idea that this is a character flaw because he didn't give this person eye contact, when a lot of people who are, are on the spectrum, I'm not suggesting that Pierre Polyev is, we don't necessarily give eye contact. So what? Does this also apply to us? So like the guy who posted it says, it absolutely tells you the character of someone if you don't give eye contact properly. To have basic human skills, spare me.
Yeah, I don't know why we put so much emphasis on it, because I don't know if people realize this, but your eyes are for seeing and your ears are for listening. You don't necessarily have to be looking at someone to be listening to them. And I think that stems to like, they like try to infantilize adults. Because a lot of times when they're trying to like get the attention of children, they'll be like, look at me when I'm talking to you, et cetera, et cetera. And that's like engraved in people's brains, even throughout adulthood. Like we're trying to teach like, hey, you have to look someone in their eye to show respect or to show that you're paying attention and stuff. And to an extent, maybe if there's like a specific reason for doing it, but in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of irrelevant.
And
Like,
I
it
can
doesn't
tell
really make a
you,
difference.
100%, me looking at a person does not mean I'm paying attention to them.
Yeah. If I'm forced to look in someone's eyes, I'm thinking more about like what I'm doing with my eyes than listening to what they're saying, as opposed to like if I'm allowed to scan the room or just I do this thing when I'm talking where I kind of like just make my eyes go in a circle, or I look around like almost like I'm scanning my brain for files or for words to use. And if I'm not allowed to do that, it messes with my entire thought process. And it makes it very difficult for me to think straight.
Yeah, but it's like...
Plus, like, to me, like, staring into someone's eyes is difficult, but it's also an intimate thing sometimes.
Yeah.
So I don't really like doing it with everyone.
Yeah. Like, to me, it
if
is
that
a
makes
very
sense.
intimate thing as well. But it's just, again, I don't like Pierre Polyev. Pierre Polyev is, in fact, an arrogant prick. Like, there's no doubt about that. But it's just, it's these blanket statements coming from the people who are looking at this. Like, just pompous twat here. Oh, 100%. Just because he wasn't giving the eye contact, it absolutely tells you the character of someone. Because the lack of eye contact. So are you saying that someone like me, I'm a pompous twat because I won't look at somebody in the eyes? Like, you can just say Pierre Polyev is a pompous twat. You don't need to say it's because of the eye contact. But on the flip side, Emma tweeted this out that I thought was interesting as well. Direct eye contact with the camera, very convincing.
Nobody was texting war plans. Nobody.
And then
Oh,
here,
did you
The
see
media does.
Did you see the clip above it?
this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
No,
his
good
children
one.
are just like, I love this clip so much.
Oh my God, the
His
expression on that
children-
kid's face right now.
Those are both his kids.
Yeah. But
And
Emma's
they're
is,
both just like, they're like, Dad's drunk again. That's literally their expression.
but Emma is saying that it's his tell when he looks
They take
directly
anonymous
into the
sources from
camera.
disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations.
I don't care about what he has to say here. But it's, as somebody who is autistic, this is what bugs me. So it's like, so what level of eye contact is appropriate here then? Like, am I supposed to not look at the camera, but I'm supposed to look at this person? And what is the duration before it's considered normal? And this is why a lot of autistic people can come off as artificial or strange, is because we're trying to calculate in our brain what the appropriate amount of eye contact is for any given situation. And can we please maybe just stop policing the amount of eye contact people give?
Yeah, I agree. I actually I was so bad at it as a kid that I studied it. I had to teach myself how to mask. That's another thing, like just growing up being different in order to there's like two different avenues a lot of people with autism take. It's like, I'm either gonna like hyper fixate on learning how to mask and like fit in, or I'm just gonna like accept my fate and be like the the kid who doesn't have any friends, and just like, I'm not saying like that's your only options. Sometimes you're lucky and you meet other kids with autism or other kids with similar interests, and you have like a tiny little niche friend group. Um, but those are like your two options. And I was really desperate because I grew up in a small town. I didn't have a lot of people like myself. So I had to like teach myself how to mask. And I got pretty good at it. Like I was a really good masker. But even like learning all these different things, I was still never good at eye contact.
Like,
I was always bad about it. Like I could never get that one down. It just always felt uncomfortable.
and I've had to, as a child, again, I learned how to mask as much as I could. And even then, it was so exhausting trying to mimic the people around me. And it never landed because it was never authentically from me. It was just what I was seeing
Yeah.
around me. But somehow when I did these exact same behaviors I would see from other people, it wasn't working. And people knew something was wrong, or they became suspicious of me. So if I give too much eye contact, I'm being suspicious. But if I don't give enough eye contact, I'm being suspicious. And like one of my more problematic times I was dealing with eye contact was when I met Sam Cedar.
Yeah. You're just like,
I went to the
oh,
Boston
wait,
show. I went to the Boston
did?
show way back when, and I was the first person in line, and I was like super thrilled when I finally got to meet him. I'm like, oh, I'm looking at his eyes. Oh crap! How long is this now? What? Huh? Do I look? Wait, now what? What is the guideline here? I don't know. I should have looked this up ahead of time. How much am I supposed to actually look at him? Versus like I'm too nervous and really I just want to look down. So I'm like,
Yeah.
So I'm just like, can we just maybe not, like, again, Pete Hegseth is a prick in so many different ways. Can we maybe just, because it's not about him when we start doing like these broad, what's the word? Categorizations is not the word that I want, but it's kind of what I mean. These broad statements around certain behaviors like eye contact and stuff, because what happens is you then enfold in other people where it has nothing to do with their character. It has nothing to do with whatever projected feelings the other person thinks is putting onto them as to why they're doing it and why not.
Yeah.
There are
And that,
so
oh
many,
gosh.
there are so many things that we can attack him for, both him and Pierre and Polyev. Maybe not something that a lot of people actually do struggle with.
Yeah. And that leads to like another topic entirely that we don't have to get super into, but like the dating norms for people that we're expected to follow, some of which involves eye contact, is very confusing and very hard to navigate.
Yeah,
I
no,
had
I touched
deleted
on it a bit earlier that I struggle with dates, but yeah.
Yeah, before I deleted my old social media, I had like 10,000 followers on Twitter, and my most popular post I ever made was like, it was a long thread I did that was like 10 threads long, and it specifically talked about dating as an autistic person, and it got me probably like 4,000 of my 10,000 followers just from that one post. It got like 1 million views, and then I deleted that account. But I really wish I could remember everything I said, because it got followed by everyone.
I wish you could have like transferred those over to me.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I'm trying to build my way back up. I had like a midlife crisis and just deleted everything, and then I had to restart from scratch. But I made that post, it just kept getting spread around. Every major autistic account on Twitter just reposted it. You had like Cheshire Cat and Kaylin, and there was just a bunch of different accounts that had posted it, and it just spread like wildfire. But yeah, I was specifically talking about dating. It's basically saying like, don't date an autistic person if you're not gonna if you're going to judge them for like these things specifically. And it was going into like different aspects of our character, and like a lot of which would like not work well with like a neurotypical person. I wish I could find that.
Because
Unfortunately, it's lost in the ethos.
there is also the flip side where some people will try to justify bad behavior by them being autistic in some way. Because there is also
Yes,
that
that
flip
can
side that
happen.
is such a big problem too. It's like, oh, well, I need to get food from this expensive restaurant every week because it's my comfort food that I eat every day. And it's like, no, sometimes you have to check your autism, you know. Sometimes it can
Yeah.
become problematic. And it's a two-way street. Like sometimes the person who's autistic has to become more cognizant of what they're doing, but a lot of the time the other person also has to be a lot more understanding of what's happening, and try to find a way to work around certain aspects and stuff. But I have an extraordinarily hard time dating or finding people to go on dates with, and it's super frustrating because I would like to be in a relationship. I'm not asexual, though times I wish I was, because then it wouldn't be such a big deal. But
Yeah.
here was another thing about all of this that I came across just recently too, that I thought was frustrating. So Evan Loves Warp had quote tweeted this, saying there's literally a shitload of existing research into the cause of autism, and suggesting that there isn't means you've never cared enough to look into it. And so he was quote tweeting this douche canoe, who said, "This is my brother Eric. He's 31, has autism and Down syndrome, and lives in a group home. He is nonverbal and will never pay taxes. I personally would like to know what causes autism and why autism rates have been increasing. This should make you mad." And I'm like, I think he was probably born with the Down syndrome. That's how that works. But it is, again, just all of it is so frustrating. It's like, well, I would really like to love my brother more, but he's autistic and Down syndrome. So, you know, I wish he was just a normal person.
Why
can
is
go
he talking
nonverbal.
about not paying taxes? It's almost like this post specifically, it's like he's trying to the RFK video probably came out, and then this guy, I just looked up his Instagram. He posts like shirtless thirst traps. He's literally just like content farming. That's why he put the never pay taxes, because he wanted people to type in autism, never pay taxes. And for his post, I'm curious how many views he has on this post alone.
17.8
million. See, and when was it posted? On the 18th?
Yeah.
2 days later, he's on News Station with his mom doing an interview. He's literally farming. He's using his brother's disability to farm views for profit. And to me, that's the most disgusting. Next to like him saying these horrendous things about his brother, you know what makes me really mad? Owen. It's using your brother for internet clout, you disgusting piece of shit. Like, and then bragging about it, like, oh yeah, I did an interview with Eric and my mom on News Station. I really I want to find that interview later. That's insane.
I can become nonverbal. Where are my views? I can become nonverbal. Where are my views? But I have paid taxes. So I suppose if I were to make a post about like how I can become nonverbal and I will never pay taxes because I'm autistic, I might get a few more views. If I be one of those
Trump as well.
Yeah, if I be one of those people, oh, what's the term? Like the gay guy like Dave Rubin, who will justify all the hatred and stuff on the right, saying they're not all bad. I'm gay and I have friends on the right. You know, I should be that autistic person that's like, no, what these people are saying is all right. Like, I totally will never pay taxes. I don't use the toilet. RFK, yeah, I'm autistic and I'm validating everything that he's saying.
Here's the thing too, like, this guy is like, my brother has Down syndrome and autism. That's why I voted for the party that is literally wanting to take away their rights. and also take away all the programs that are in place that's making his life like livable. He said his
And
brother's in a
yeah,
group home. Who funds that? He
from
says his brother's like living on a farm and stuff. Who's funding all of that?
yeah, and it
Like
looks like a
you're
pretty
you're
nice farm.
hurting your brother.
Yeah, it looks like a
You're
pretty
hurting your
nice farm.
brother.
So you want him to be removed from that farm and put into one of these internment camps that RFK is doing.
Yeah.
That's going to benefit his brother how? But I don't know if you actually wanted to listen to what he says in this or...
Yeah, we can. We can. Sorry.
Okay. I can't even remember. I think I have, but I forget most of it because it was a whole bunch of bullshit.
This is my brother, Eric. Eric, say hi. Oh, Eric can't say hi. He's
I'm sorry, I did not realize that he did that right up from the get-go. Here's my nonverbal brother. Hey, say hi. Oh, right, he can't because he's nonverbal.
Thanks, vaccines.
Uh-huh.
Like, what? Hey, Eric, say hi. Oh, wait, my bad. My brother I've known my entire life is nonverbal. Like,
So I'm just going to
why
add
would you
this joke
even
right off the bat.
That is so ableist. That's insane.
Wow. It'd be like asking somebody who lost a limb and be like, hey, wave. Oh, right, you can't. Oh, that is a very gross way to start this all off. It's basically like it's minimizing, it's making fun of it. Like it's just, wow. But that's usually what conservatives, that's the type of humor that conservatives like, though.
he's nonverbal. About 25-30% of people with autism, like Eric, are nonverbal. And what we would like to do is just figure out
Is that a
why
real
the rate
statistic?
of autism is.
I don't think so. Like, it
I've
doesn't
never
sound right to
looked
me,
that
but
up.
I'll let this play while you're looking it up.
Increasing and get to the bottom of what causes autism. Eric, sound good?
Okay.
Eric will never work a job, never pay taxes, and my mom took care of him for 30 years.
Without even recognizing the immense privilege these people have, that they can have Eric in this very nice looking, like, group home and stuff, without even recognizing just the, it's so frustrating because most people who have a child with Down syndrome, autism, is nonverbal, they're just left to look after them on their own with limited means, sometimes living with poverty. And they're not even coming close to recognizing the absolute insane amount of privilege they have, that they can get Eric the care he needs. It's disgusting in so many ways. And then he wants to take away
Yeah.
whatever tiny resources people have.
It's really frustrating because he's like, yeah, my mom, she's essentially screwed for life because she has to take care of him forever. And it's like, that's a weird thing to say about your child. like if I love my child, if I had to take care of my child for the rest of my life because they needed it, I would happily do so. Like a lot of these people, they have children and then they start saying stuff like, I can't wait till you move out when you're 18. And it's like, your children are like 5 and you're already thinking about them leaving you, or is it that bad? If you did not enjoy being a parent, and don't get me wrong, I understand that there are struggles that come with raising people that are like dependent and they have needs. And trust me, I'm a parent. I have an autistic child, and I know sometimes we butt heads and I have to deal with like certain things that a lot of other parents don't have to deal with. But it doesn't make me love my child. It doesn't make me view my child, or love my child less. It doesn't make me view my child as some sort of burden that I can't wait to get rid of, or that I hope I can get rid of. That's just weird to me.
Well,
Like it's very
I faced that firsthand with my mom when I was in my earlier 20s, and she was also going through a lot of the time. Again, I'm not trying to paint my mom into some sort of monster. We're good. We've both overcome a lot, but in my early 20s in particular was a really rough time, and she was saying that I was a burden. And that was mainly because of my mental health and how horrible it was, the depression I was in, how crippling that was. And all I could think to myself was, you're not willing to put the time and energy into me. Like, what if I had been born with a different type of disability that maybe I required a wheelchair, or I really could not function independently on my own at all whatsoever, and I would have needed in-home care for the rest of my life. Would you be saying that if that was the case, but you're saying it because of my mental health? Because you can't deal with my mental health issues? Like, I
Yeah.
absolutely have felt like a burden to people. And so it is so enraging to me to see something like this, that he's looking at his brother like he's holding the rest of the family back, as opposed to just embracing his brother for who he is. It is disgusting.
And the
And
thing is, like, they have him in a camp. They don't even taking care of him
Yeah.
24/7. They leave him there and disappear. Like,
and
literally the day after, him and his mom and his girlfriend were racing on the beach.
yeah, and that's the thing. When you have children, you have to be aware that these are the situations that might happen. And should somebody have a child that needs a lot of extra special care, that's where the government should be coming in and helping them. You know, it shouldn't be left on individuals to deal with it, because what will happen is those individuals will then get resentful of their child. Like, it's just, that is human nature, unfortunately, a lot of them. If they aren't provided with some supports and some help from society. It is so frustrating that somebody with this level of privilege is spewing this nonsense.
Did you go through his Twitter?
No.
I am. I kind of wish I didn't. It gets worse.
Oh.
He started talking about people, because someone made a very good point. They're like, just because he's nonverbal doesn't mean he can't communicate in different ways. Let's not spread misinformation. There's plenty of foundations that solely focus on adults on the spectrum and employing verbal and nonverbal all the same. And then he said, I literally posted a video about him being nonverbal. And this guy goes, let's not spread misinformation. They can still communicate. Autism is literally one of the worst things you can have as a human, especially if it's severe, like my brother. Morons. And then immediately after that, oh, your brother doesn't live with you? My brother doesn't live with us now because he is violent and physical. My mom dealt with it for 30 years, way longer than most could even imagine. Give me a break. This is why we want to find out what causes autism so we can actively work against it and diminish it. Wow. They literally dumped this poor child in a camp, and then just the very next day went like racing on a beach.
Yeah, so they put this child in a camp, used this child for
Well,
clout.
let's back up. They put this adult person with autism, because he is 31, who's probably capable of doing incredible things and probably capable of communicating in different ways. Just because someone's nonverbal, there's literally there's an autistic man who like created a way of speaking through like his computer or whatever, where he can like communicate easily. And he's like writing books and stuff, but he literally can't talk to you because he just doesn't function that way. And like, there's no telling like what kind of stuff his brother could actually do if they didn't just throw him in a can. I'm sorry. I can't get over it.
And it was extremely tough burden for a mom to take care of a child like Eric for 30 years, when most people cannot take care of a child for 18 years, as well as my mom did for myself and Eric.
Yeah, he turned out just wonderful.
Eric for 30. It's crazy. And we just want to figure out why. So this is what people with autism are like. They're rarely like love on the spectrum. It's just not like that. But fortunately, we're at St. Augustine Center for Living, and Eric has a decent life living here with all these animals. It's pretty good. Things turned out pretty well, but we'd still like to figure out what causes it so that most people don't have autism like Eric.
I would say most people don't have autism like Eric.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to switch back. That's the last of the clips that I have. And since I haven't seen any massive super chats, you guys aren't going to be seeing my article on polyamory. Let's see.
That video is. I really wish I didn't look up his Twitter. I'm kind of peeved.
Well, it's just
Like,
people don't realize that a lot of the advances, a lot of the things that people appreciate when it comes to culture and stuff are coming from people who are autistic or on the spectrum, who are ADHD and hyperfocus. Because again, there ain't no neurotypical people drawing the way that I do. And the thing is that this is easy for me. I don't even have to think about it. It just happens. Like, or the literature and books and stories and movies that people really love with the detailed stories and whatnot, they're not necessarily coming from neurotypical people, because it's the autistic people that can think in those different levels and different dynamics and have, you know, characters that are more dynamic and stuff. Please be patient. I have autism hat.
it looks kind of cute with my cat ears. Like,
Well,
it makes it look big too.
Yeah, I actually
Sorry, I
carry a
didn't mean to
note to my
distract you.
wallet. So if for some reason I become nonverbal in public, I can hand this note to people to be like, this is what's going on. But that would be I would only go nonverbal like that if I'm having a severe emotional shock over something. But then I carry the note because I'm still aware of what's going on around me. I just can't talk.
My last like nonverbal, like, I guess, public meltdown happened at a Japanese airport, and it was pretty rough. It was bad. So like I turned in my bags, and I'm military, so typically they're like, oh, it's overweight, they'll just waive it, right? Because I'm on military orders, so they'll be like, yeah, whatever. And I packed a bunch of stuff because I was going to Hawaii for 40 days. I had to pack like a bunch of stuff with me because I wasn't going to be there bored. I have many interests. And the lady's like, no, this is overweight. And I was like, what? Y'all have never, ever, y'all just usually put an overweight thing on it and you send it full send because I'm military. And they were like, no, you're going to have to like move some stuff around and like move it into a different bag. So I took some stuff out, I put it in a different bag, and then I tried reweighing it again and it didn't work. And then I was like, I don't know. I don't know what you want me to do. I can't fit everything into my other bag. And they were like, no, you need to move some more bags around. And then I tried doing it again, and I'm shoving stuff in my book bag. My book bag my carry-on is probably like 50 or 60 pounds at this point. And I'm like, I can't move anything around. Like, I have a bunch of stuff and I can't do it. I can't. And then they were just like, well, you know, we're not going to check your luggage. And I just like fell to the ground and was like hyperventilating. Like, I freaked out. And the Japanese ladies were so sweet. They were like, what do we do? Like, they were just like, oh no, we're so sorry, whatever. And then like, I was holding up the whole line. There's probably like 200 people watching. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this right now. I went nonverbal. I was like rocking back and forth on the ground. It was really not a good experience for me. But thankfully, they let me push the luggage through.
Yeah. I know, like, with situations like that, I hate when they get filmed and people just put it up online. It's like, look at this person overreacting. And
Yeah.
sometimes I've been accused of trying to get attention or to manipulate people into getting what I want if I'm having like an emotional episode and stuff. And I hate that because they don't understand these reactions, they're not by choice. You know, and
Yeah, I didn't choose to
I
do
would
that.
love to not be able to go through those things. But it is like, again, this idea that we are burdens or we're manipulating people to get the way we want by having a meltdown. And that is so far from the truth. And how do you explain that to people who have never been through that?
Yeah, it was bad.
Because the
I
only
hate
reason,
airports.
yeah, the only reason why I was able to hold on to this one job as long as I did was because my boss was my best friend. Like, he had recommended the job to me before he knew he was going to be my direct boss, which we thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
So he was able to cover for me a lot if I was having emotional issues and stuff. And this was well before I even knew I was autistic. But I have a lot of mental health issues. That's why I'm on disability. So he was able to cover for me a lot or just work with me in ways that the vast majority of employers would never do, because he understood that there were mental health issues and stuff that I was trying to deal with at the same time. And if it wasn't for him at that job, there's no way I would have lasted as long there. And even with his help, I still made some massive screw ups. But other people would then say that I'm trying to like emotionally manipulate him to get what I want at work and whatnot. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, that's not what I'm doing. Because I would mention to people, oh, yeah, I'll tell him if I'm having, a downswing or something so that he knows, and maybe we can reschedule meetings or something so that I'm not having to deal with things while I'm in this spiraling mode or whatever. And they're like, oh, so you're just manipulating him to get what you want. And it's like, no, no, it's so I can function in this work environment that
Yeah.
I'm being forced to be in because of capitalism.
I get accused of that sometimes, and it's really frustrating because like I have a really hard time lying. I'm not a good liar, and I don't like lying, and I just don't really do it. And sometimes it gets me in trouble, and sometimes it like it's frustrating because people will be like, "Oh, you're trying to like manipulate people." Like very similar examples to what you were saying, whereas like no, I'm not. I feel like y'all try to do that because y'all aren't as blunt or direct as I am. Because I'll be like, hey, I'm going to go get food. Do you want to come with me to get food? And then that's like a direct, like, hey, I'm hungry. Would you like to eat with me? Whereas, like, other people, more neurotypical people will be like, yeah, I'm getting a little hungry. I'm thinking about maybe going getting some lunch. And they put on this like will they, won't they? It's almost like they're afraid of like rejection or something, or they're afraid of like being judged or something. I can't wrap my head around it, but they have these like weird, like it's almost like games they're playing with the way that they try to ask questions, or they try to like direct people towards answers. Whereas like I'm like, why are y'all doing that? Just ask the questions. Like
The thing that I run into problems with coworkers is when you actually acknowledge their behavior. Things like,
yeah.
oh, I'm not expecting this report done on time from this person. Like I would say to her or something, it's like, I know it'll be late, that's okay. And suddenly she'll freak out. It's like, no, you are literally late on everything. I know this. This isn't a judgment call. This is just me stating a fact that it's
Yeah.
okay that this is going to be late because I know you're late on everything. But then she would like freak out that I said that. And it's like, when are you on time?
Yeah, it's rude for you to say that. I get accused of that too. Like, how rude? Why did you say that? Or like, why are you like you can't say that to this person because of their status or whatever. And I'm like, I didn't know we had to treat people differently based on, like whether they're more or less important than me.
Yeah.
It makes being in the military very hard too, because I get in a lot of trouble where I'll just like say something and they're like, I can't believe you said that to the commander. And it's like, okay. I mean, I'm not going to say anything I wouldn't say to y'all or whatever. Like, it doesn't really affect me.
Yeah, people
Um,
get offended when you don't treat them differently based on statuses.
yeah. Um, it's so strange. I could talk about autism and neurotypical differences for like hours, to be honest. I put a lot of research and study into it. When I first got diagnosed, it was in the military. I already pretty much knew I had autism and ADHD because my um what are they called? The pediatrician. I don't know if Canada has a different term for it, but my pediatrician when I was a child, um, he told my mom, like, well, my grandmother. I was raised by my grandparents, so I call my mom and is actually my grandmother. It's confusing. I'm from Florida. Don't just whatever. Anyways, he told my mom like, "Hey, you should get your child tested for ADHD and autism." And my mom was like, "My kid isn't going to be on drugs." And then the pediatrician was like, you don't have to give them drugs, but you should probably still find out if they have this learning disability. That way they can not struggle in school as much, if that makes sense. Get a plan in place, because they even had plans back then. It's a lot more common now where they have specific plans. And my very religious family, instead of taking me and getting me tested, decided to have a like I said, I went to a Pentecostal church. They had a exorcism on the demons that were giving me autism, and in front of the entire congregate, they had the preacher splash holy water on me, and they laid me on the ground and put a blanket over my body, and they prayed the demon that was causing me to be different out of my body. And that literally just forced me to not want to that. Out of everything that forced me to mask, I think that was the icing on the cake, where I was like, I am not going to be myself around these people anymore.
I get that. I can see why.
This is traumatic. I'm just going to not talk and not engage with any of these people. And I'm just going to do my best to blend in as much as I can, because this is scary.
Wow. Well, we've been chatting for almost 3 hours now. So let's start wrapping things up. So normally, I forgot to tell you this before we went live, that what we'll do is we'll say goodbye to everyone, but then don't go away right away, because then we'll say our secret goodbye.
Secret goodbye.
It's something I usually like to just check in with people right before, instead of just okay, we say goodbye to everyone and click off. I like to check in with people afterwards, privately, to make sure that everything is fine type thing. It's a thing I do.
Okay.
Because to me, it feels very weird to just suddenly be cut off from everything. But that's me. That's a me thing. But let's check the Sandbox and seeing if anyone is asking questions or wanting to know anything. And thank you for the people who became members. Atticus among us, gifting a membership to yourself. And I also saw MIDI Doctors had jumped into the Sandbox, but I don't think they were around for very long. Because it's probably getting pretty late over on their side of the pond. Well, Mindy Doctor says before they left, Sandy is great to see guests on. I know they really like it when I have guests on. I guess they just get tired of seeing just me on camera. No, I'm joking. I'd love to have guests on. Yeah, I like to have guests on more often and stuff. It's just I'm not the greatest at networking.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm ironically enough, I'm really good at networking. I just don't really have a social I'm not really a streamer per se, so I don't really go on people's streams, but I might start doing it. I've had people say I'm decent at it.
Bo Zed and Demas Rex had that word that I was searching for earlier, generalizations. It's basically a game with the Sandbox where I'll be thinking of a word, but I can't quite think of it, and then I'll be tossing it into the Sandbox, and then they all get to guess what word that I'm trying to say. They usually come up with it, so.
Thanks for giving me a shout out on the stuff and whatnot. I'm trying to at least explore the option of maybe becoming a political streamer at some point if I do get kicked out of the military, because then at least I'll have something to fall back on, but we'll see. It is something I definitely have a special interest in. I follow politics very closely.
I think people would be interested to hear your perspective more often. Let's see. Well, nobody's really asking questions. People are getting nice and active in the Sandbox, though, so that's always good to see. I usually engage a lot more with the sandbox when it's just me, but I feel like I'm ignoring the guest if I'm paying too much attention to the sandbox. But Angela W says this has been a great discussion. Let's see. Angela W says, I guess my only question is there seems to be disproportionate number of neurodivergent people who are trans or non-binary. Has there been any research studies on that topic? There is.
Yes.
There has been. There is. There is a correlation.
Yep.
Because again, it's part of we're not conforming to a lot of societal norms, and we accept ourselves, I think, a lot easier. But if you know more specifically, like I know it's true, I don't know the studies.
There is multiple studies, and I've read each one of them.
Yeah.
My friend, who the one I mentioned that was that's autistic, she just wrote her PhD, her doctorate. What is it called? Your master thesis or whatever. She got her PhD, and her master thesis was in neurodiversity in the workplace. So very good read, highly recommend. And but her and I have gone back and talked about it a lot. And one of the things I wanted to study and write a thesis on, had I gone down that direction, and not the cyber one, was going to be related to like the overlap between neurodivergence and LGBTQ, because there have been like at least 6 or 7 studies. It's prevalent. It's prevalent enough to warrant its own Wikipedia page. And
Angela W says dissertation.
Dissertation, yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
They're good. They're good. My sandbox is really good for this sort of thing.
Yeah. I like know words, but when I try to think about them, they don't always come out.
Yeah,
like I know what I'm trying to say.
I know. My sandbox is really trained to start figuring out what words it is that we're trying to say. I've trained them well.
If you want to look up autism and LGBTQ identities on Wikipedia, it has all the different studies and articles in there about why there's an overlap. There's a lot of interesting overlaps.
Yeah, if you know of a link, you can toss it into the private chat, and then I can toss it into the sandbox, or that might work.
Post it. Yeah, it's interesting. There's like a lot of it's not just being LGBTQ. There's so many different areas where autism has overlap because it doesn't follow like society's norms.
Yeah,
like if
like
you look
polyamory and stuff.
Yep. If you look at like the furry community, it's like a lot of people that are neurodiverse are in like the furry community. There's a lot of people in the kink community, like BDSM and such, and like that are like hypersexual, that also are autistic. And I think that stems from like not having sex in like a stereotypical way, because a lot of like neurotypical people, it's just like it's very basic, whereas like a lot of neurodivergent people, they think about it as like, I'm gonna like do all these cool interesting things to this person, as opposed to it just being like a really quick exchange. And it's more of like an experience than an exchange.
And there sometimes has to be some other factors involved, like for me, I can't be aroused by someone unless they're smart.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of cool stuff like that. There's a bunch of like different reasons that lead down to it. There's also like who you're around, and a lot of neurodivergent people, they become like outcasts, and then who do they hang out with? The other outcasts, the other LGBTQ people. And then just by like, and I'm not saying like it's spreadable or whatever, it's just like a lot of neurodivergent people themselves don't they don't think about sexuality and gender in the same way that neurotypical people do. And I think that's why the majority of us end up being LGBTQ
Yeah.
or non-binary
Yeah,
or trans.
Yeah, there's definitely connections there. So just because you're neurodivergent doesn't mean you're going to be. And if you are part of these communities, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are neurodivergent. But there is, the Venn diagram is very, it's an eclipse, kind of. It's
Yep.
almost a total eclipse. And that's part of the reason why a lot of people, I think adults in particular, they don't realize they're autistic because they see themselves as normal because they're just naturally drawn to other people who are neurodivergent. So they see the people around them as being very similar to them. And it's like, well, this is just normal. And so they don't clue
Yeah.
in necessarily that they're autistic. But then I've seen this kind of like chain reaction type thing where especially people in theater tend to be on the spectrum. And it's like somebody's like, I just found out I have ADHD. And then the next person's like, I just found out I do too. And the next person, I just found out I am too. And it's like,
Yeah.
and meanwhile, I'm sitting there, it's like, I could have told you that. Oh, but yeah, gotta start wrapping things up. So, for people who tune into my channel regularly, I recorded an interview with an independent candidate yesterday. I'm going to try to get it edited up and sent out tomorrow. I'll be doing my regular live stream Sunday, which will be the pre-election jitters because the election's on Monday. I went out and voted today, so I got that out of the way. Mark Joycey, somebody who's been on my channel a few times, he will be joining me for that live stream to cover the election live. And I'm going to get emotional either through relief or through horror.
Yeah.
But thank you to everyone who is a member of the Sandbox, the mods for keeping the Sandbox clean of turds, for people who've signed up to become a patron, the Amazon wish list that I have below, anyone who's helped out that way. There's, I've had a big expense lately, so any help would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. And I will see you all again soon. Oh, and links to all of Audrey's stuff is in the description box below. So, salut, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy. Over there is Audrey. And wishing your tomorrow is better than your today. And I have an end take with a lot of cat meows. There we go.